Boys are going to bring the heat today.
As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the f*** up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Welcome to Crunch Time Sports with Jeff, Booner, Lukas. It is Monday, February 3rd. We got a good one today. Lots to get to. We have a special guest joining the show. Kory Woods joins us every Monday. We got some Pistons, some Red Wings to get to. Tim Patrick's replacement incoming. We'll discuss it all.
Oh.
Discuss it all. No one's safe today. Not even draft capital. How you boys doing? Huh?
I feel good. I don't know. Hey, I'm just going to throw this out there. I know it's a beautiful Monday and or not morning. I almost said morning. Yeah, Monday night. Jeff, I don't know if this is just. Is your mic good? Can you talk? Say something. Okay, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I couldn't hear you. I mean, I thought maybe my headset was going crazy. A little dim there, Jeff. I don't know. Hey, maybe I don't know what was happening here. Maybe a little doom and gloom Monday, but your mic was.
I can tell you exactly what happened. You could hear him fine, then you hear him go, Tim Patrick's replacement. You're a coward.
Hey, Klotz.
You put three icons.
We got a whole segment on it.
Myles Garrett. You put Tim Patrick. We could hear you, and then you diss Tim Patrick. Mike gets cut.
Hey, Jeff, don't listen to him. Hey, beautiful Monday night, though. Had a great weekend. Lions, a lot of news in the Lions world. Pistons made a lot of money on the Pistons this weekend, and the Red Wings made a lot of money on the Red Wings this weekend. So it's been, Detroit's starting to come up a little bit in the sports world. The WNBA, the shock might be coming back too. That's kind of big news.
Yeah, Goff's. You got basically like the Avengers of Detroit, of Michigan. Yeah, Goff, Gores, Illich, Ford,
Goff, Gores.
Let me just say it. You got a lot of people with some deep pockets. You know, besides maybe the Illiches, but you get the point. I mean, a lot of people with deep pockets looking to buy a WNBA franchise. So hey, Detroit sports. It's looking pretty good right now. We'll get to it later in the show. We will get to it because trade deadline for the NBA. It's already happening. And we'll get to the Luka Doncic deal later. We'll get to all that, what the Pistons should do. The Red Wings, I think they're on a 6-game winning streak right now. After Tom McClellan took over, I can't hear it enough from Gentry. I just can't. So we'll get to it later. But we had a great time over the weekend. I mean, we had a great charity event to attend to. Big shout out to Tyler Conklin, the Tyler Conklin Foundation, Christy, who got us involved along with Tyler and, just going out there supporting a good cause. He chopped off all his hair for charity, hair loss, children's hair loss. And of course, another charity helping dogs as well, just doing special things for the community. So it was down at Townhouse in Detroit. We were there on Saturday afternoon. And we're just lucky, man. It was a lot of fun. So appreciate them for having us out there, try to cover it as best we can. And we told Tyler and Christy, man, anytime you guys need us to come out to an event like this, we want to make sure we kind of hold our own and we promote it as much as we can. So shout out to Tyler, TC, and the TC Foundation. So that was big time. And we got a lot of footage from behind the scenes over the weekend. So it was some good stuff.
It was a good event. Shout out to them. I mean, like good causes, which is cool. Cut his hair off. That was crazy. I didn't get my hair cut, but.
Yeah, I mean, watching him shave his head or at least trim his hair like significantly made me kind of feel less, about my head shave over the summer. I was like, wow, this guy had long, luscious hair.
I'll say his hair is expensive too. Aaron, they essentially auctioned off not the actual hair, but to cut the hair. And I'll say, like, some people spend some money on some events. I know it's for a charity, so people open up the checkbooks, but his hair is worth a lot of money. I'm not going to say how much, but it was like, wow.
A couple thousand for a strand. Say that much.
Again, not going to say how much, Klotzy, but it was a lot of money.
I know. I was like,
they were like starting bid off. I was like, yeah, probably start at like 10, 20. No.
Hey, a lot helping out a lot of
profits though.
Yeah, helping out charity, man. I mean, they pulled through. It was It was awesome. So we had a good weekend. Hope you had a good weekend too. Saturday night had a bomb drop, the Lukas stuff, which again we'll get to later. So it just seems like the last couple of days for sports has just been moving.
Cooper Kupp just got thrown in a trade request.
Cooper Kupp request trade, or not requests, but the Rams are going to deal Cooper Kupp. And Myles Garrett request trade. Oh yeah, Lukas traded. It's like the NBA and NFL is having like a little who can flood the storylines more. Like who could stay in the media right now. So like
and it was so funny when you look at like Luka got traded and how many of the like actual superstars that have been kind of wrestling a little bit like instantly active, playing. Like Paul George finally decided he's like, oh, maybe it's time to actually be worth the money that I gotten paid in 3 destinations. But it's crazy seeing that. That's going to be insane. That was the biggest trade, at least of my lifetime in the NBA. I'm trying to think of another significant one, but I can't think of a more
big weekend for sports, man. It was a big last couple of days for sports. And then we had this drop today. I mean, the Myles Garrett, it looks like a resignation letter. Is the most professional. So Myles Garrett dropped this today, and I'll read it here. He writes, as a kid, dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. And that goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man I am today. While I've loved calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It's kind of bizarre, actually. It has always been to compete and win, or to compete for and win a Super Bowl. Signed. Oh, he said, with that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett.
Could you imagine being like a Browns fan? You're like, fuck yeah. Like he's hyping up the city. And with that in mind.
And then he drops I don't want to go from Cleveland to Canton. Wow.
Do you know what's crazy about this whole situation with him? Myles Garrett's a minority owner of the Cleveland Browns.
Of course he is.
He is one of the minority. I looked it up. I didn't realize it. And then I looked it up. There's like 3 minority owners. Like there's like 2 groups. And then Myles Garrett is one of them. Like that's crazy. Like you're a minority owner and you're like, I want out.
Yeah. Is he really?
Look it up, dude. Look up minority owners of the Cleveland Browns. One of them. I mean, I just looked it up. I'll look it up again.
Oh, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh, I thought it was the Browns.
I was
either way. The man owns a team in the city and says, I want out.
I was gonna say, I don't think you can play for and own share. But yeah, same thing. Okay, you got it close. The Cavs. So he owns part of it. Minority order, whatever it is.
Yeah, minority of the Cleveland. That's crazy, dude. The man said, I want out of the city.
I mean, can you blame him? Can you blame him?
I mean,
and I know we're gonna get into it, boys, but I feel like it's obvious. Like if you're a Detroit Lions fan, you should want Myles Garrett on the Detroit Lions after what has happened to the Detroit Lions defense over the last 3 years. If you're sitting and saying, no, the cap space, too valuable, the draft picks, too valuable, and then you truly think about what Aiden Hutchinson and Myles Garrett would do. Yeah, and you think about Myles Garrett has 2 years on his contract. If you look at Myles Garrett's contract, it's obviously not cheap, okay? It's Myles fucking Garrett we're talking about. But that, if you want to go get a 5-star defensive end like I was pounding the table for when I said, I don't give a damn, trade a first-round pick, trade a second-round pick, trade 2 first-round picks. This is the exact type of guy that you want. And he's no Micah Parsons. He's not going to be a drama queen. He's been letting his career rot. In the city of Cleveland, Ohio, in the state of Cleveland, Ohio, off Lake Erie with Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, Dorian Thompson-Robinson at his quarterback. You don't think Kevin Stefanski is his head coach? Oh, my God. You don't think that this man, Myles Garrett, would jump up and down, do somersaults, and fly into Allen Park and go play his basketball? Because I do. I think you would see that the future Hall of Famer that Myles Garrett is, because when you look at Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year, he only had 14.5 sacks. Well, if you look what they do to stop Myles Garrett, it's insane that he has 14.5 sacks. Considering the fact We saw Aiden Hutchinson go down last year. I don't think that's going to happen again. But if you have Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, DJ Reader, and now you add Myles Garrett into this, tell me how Kelvin Shepard messes this defense up. Tell me. Explain to me how. Because you could have Kendall Vildor out there for all I care. They're going to try to get to him. They can't. Because Myles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson are there. I understand that this is very far from a lock from happening. Very far from it. I mean, this would be extremely out of Brad Holmes' character to go trade for a guy like Myles Garrett. But for the love of God, pick up the phone and make it happen. We're looking at the 28th overall pick. Give me the 28th overall pick this year, and let's 31st, 32nd pick next year. Do you think those two players will be combined better than Myles Garrett? No. I don't care what the financial ask is. I don't care what the compensation you have to give up is, as long as it's not Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jared Goff. Everybody else on the table for Myles Garrett because he's better than all of those guys. Keep the core and you get Myles Garrett. That is how you bring Detroit a Lambeau Trophy, and that is how you beat the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and etc. That's how you do it. So bring him home. I know it's very far from probable, but God damn it, bring him home.
You know what? I'm going to defer to a man. We got into a battle last week. We did. It was a teammate. It was a very heated discussion just about the future and Brad Holmes and draft capital and why it's important. But I want to let Booner cook here. I want to see where Booner's at. I think it's a good time, right? Myles Garrett requested trade. Where are you at, Boone? And then I'll kind of share my thoughts with this.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I don't want to make excuses. Hey, Klotz, I appreciate your input. I really do. I appreciate your input there. I tend to, I know the boys. Jeff loves to be think a little on the wild side. Klotz, you love to think a little bit on the wild side. I tend to think maybe I'm going to bring the boys down a little bit here and be a little realistic land. All right. I want to be the realistic one on the show for you guys. Okay. Klotz, I love the energy. I love it all. I love the energy, Klotz.
Thanks, Boone.
When we had this conversation last week, though, boys, I don't remember a guy by the name of Myles Garrett getting brought up. I didn't hear that name once.
Well,
I don't even. No. Hey, this is my time to talk. I didn't hear Myles Garrett. I didn't hear another defensive player of the year award, a winner on the line to go bring him in for a first-round pick. I heard, hey, just go get a guy that's proven in the league. Matthew Judon. We talked about that. I would love Matthew Judon. We talked about some other. I never heard Myles Garrett name come up once, boys. Not once. Am I wrong? I mean, and you know what? Actually,
I did bring up Micah Parsons and Josh Allen.
I asked a question. I didn't really want an answer out of that. I just wanted.
You know the answer.
I didn't hear those names. But I'm going to tell you boys what. I'm the realistic one on the show. When I realize something, hey, you need to go win a Super Bowl. There are moves you have to make to do it, boys. The man's available now. The man is available. If you have an opportunity to put a defense together with 2 defensive player of the year, I would say winners with Hutch this year. This right here, boys, that defense, that is a Super Bowl winning defense right there, boys.
You cook, Boone.
That right there is a Super Bowl winning defense. All these other pieces, and people say, well, Booner, you're not going to be able to pay. That defense right there, that will be your defense next year if you make the trade. Now, if you don't make the trade, you can put in where Myles Garrett is, Zadarius Smith, and then you can put the rookie in there, the argument that I made. Myles Garrett wasn't available last week. He was not available last week. Max Crosby has not been shown to be available. Jeff, you can laugh all you want over there. I see you trying to. I'm speaking facts right now. These are facts. These are guys who weren't available. Micah Parsons wasn't available. None of these guys. Myles Garrett's available. He went to his ownership and said, I want out. I don't want to be here anymore. Now, the thing with this, boys and Klotz, we can get into the conversation on how much it is, what it is. Obviously, me personally, I would love Myles Garrett. I'm not going to say, hey, give him 3 or 4 first-round picks. Like, at that point, I'm like, all right, you're just playing yourself. You can go try and scam someone else. We're not in the scamming business here in Detroit with Brad Holmes. That's not what we do. But if the leverage turns the way to where Myles Garrett says, hey, boys, I'm not playing this year. I'm not stepping my foot on a football field until you guys trade me. Browns lose a little bit of leverage in that situation. And you can say, hey, I'll give you a first and a second. I'll give you a first, a third, and a fourth. And the price goes down a little bit. And if that happens, the only thing I'm asking, and I'm not pounding my table like you, Klotzy, saying it has to get done. I just want Brad Holmes. All I want is Brad Holmes to make the phone call and say, hey, what is the price? Let's start a conversation here and let's see what the price is. Because I would be fuming if I find out that someone gets him for a first and a second or a first and a third, and you didn't make a call for a first and a third, or you could have got him for a first and a second. I would be fuming. And I think I know Brad. Brad's called for Danielle Hunter. He's called for Max Crosby. I think he had a conversation about Za'Darius, and he also probably asked about Myles Garrett. He makes those phone calls. The man knows what he's doing. And the biggest thing of it all, boys, is people don't realize this at all, but the Lions do have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to the money. Jeff, you've been harping on it all day on Twitter. I see you battling, just fighting people. They have the cap space flexibility. They have the player leverage when it comes to signing guys. They can choose not to sign guys. They have the picks to use. They have it all. They have opportunities to go make a winning move. To me, it's, hey, don't mortgage your whole future, but take some of your future and say, hey, we need to win a Super Bowl the next 2 or 3 years. Jeff, this is where all respect goes to you in a sense. When I'm reading your tweets today and I'm listening to you on the 9 a.m. show this morning, it starts to click in my head a little bit. The money lines up perfectly. It lines up perfectly with some of these contracts that you're going to sign, that you're going to have, to where you're able to bring a guy like this in. If Myles Garrett doesn't ask for a long-term deal, which the reports are, he doesn't care about the contract. He just wants to win a Super Bowl. You go make that move right now, boys. You guys saw that defense there, right?
Yep. Pull it up one more time, but if
you guys see that defense there, this defense, boys, you got Kelvin Shepard. Look at the 2 safeties in the back. You got 2 basically all-pro safeties. Anzo, Jack, Amik, Carlton, bring him back. Terrion, trade for Myles Garrett. You have Hutch on the other side, and you have DJ and Aleem in the middle. Who is going to do anything on this defense? Nobody.
Not in the NFC.
Nobody. Nobody.
Oh,
no one. And yes,
dream.
My biggest thing too, boys, like I know, like, and this is where I love like Klotzy, I love you. We're pounding the table for it. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, we can say we want this all we want. It's very probably it's not really that realistic at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like it probably isn't. Like, if you guys look at it, like I heard Shefty say today, like, guys ask for trades all the time. You look at Brandon Ayuk last summer, ended up signing an extension to stay in the 49ers. Debo did it. Like, players do it all the time and end up staying. It just seems like one of those situations where it's going to get pretty messy, and maybe you get lucky and get it, but whatever team ends up getting him is going to be set pretty well, especially because he just wants to win a Super Bowl. He's not really worried about the money at this point of his career.
You know what? I want to say this. Very impressed. Very impressed with you, Booner. You know what? I don't even care about Friday. All I know is we're on the same side today, and that's all that matters. Okay, we've finally cleared Friday. We're on the same team. You guys are both making a lot of sense. This is what I've been talking about with the audience when it comes to making a move for a proven guy, like a Myles Garrett-esque player. To me, and I tweeted this out, and I want to pull up the tweet here in a second about the money, because that's the angle people want to take with this thing, which, like, I understand. That's what you have to look at realistically. But the big thing is people want to hoard the draft capital. And I want to make this very clear. I'm not someone that's saying trade every single draft pick for the next 5 years. What I'm saying, and my whole argument is, when you have a GM like Brad Holmes, he drafts so well anywhere. Like, if Brad was a guy that only hit on first and second rounders, I'd say, well, I don't know if we can get rid of those. I don't know if we can get rid of those first and second rounders, because this guy can't draft for his life past the second round. But the fact of the matter is, Brad can. He can draft pretty much anywhere. You got a future starter in Mahogany in the 7th or 6th round, and you've gotten Amon-Ra in the 4th, Aleem in the 3rd, Kirby in the 3rd. You've gotten some really good players, and you've also gotten some really good players in the 2nd, of course, too. But the thing with this, and the point I'm making is, like, when you have a guy like Myles Garrett, and let's say the Browns do want multiple first, my thinking on it is, will you draft a Myles Garrett at 28th in the next 3 years? I would say no. Most likely not. This is a guy who's a number 1 overall pick. You know, like you're not getting that dude at 28. It's highly unlikely, a future Hall of Fame or that caliber, still in his prime, basically. And a guy who's had like 100 plus sacks in his career. So he's highly productive. This is a move to me that if you make, you're looking at these AFC quarterbacks that we talk about, a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, as good luck. Because you have Aiden and you have Myles Garrett on the other side. You are screwed. Even the Eagles with that offensive line, you are screwed. Like, this takes you to another level. He's someone that can make plays on the biggest stage. He's someone that I would love in a Lions uniform. Now, how realistic is it? I don't know. But that's not what I'm here to do. I'm not a Lions, like, there's reporters that their job is to make sense of it. My job is to tell you what I want them to do. And that is trade for Myles Garrett, at least attempt to trade for Myles Garrett. It'd be boring if I opened up the show and said, well, guys, most likely Brad Holmes is not going to make this deal. Like, I understand that, but that's not the conversation. We want Myles Garrett in a Lions uniform. It makes a massive difference, and the money lines up. That's what people keep saying. Oh, you're going to lose J-Mo. You're going to lose all these guys. You're going to lose all these guys. Look at the money. I mean, these guys don't actually – their money doesn't kick in until the end of his contract. Now, people keep telling me, and I was responding to people in the comments, and, a bunch of people were responding, which I have no problem with. I'll go back and forth and have conversations with people. But the big thing people bring up is, well, the money. He wants a massive contract. Well, again, we've seen players in the NFL play on their deals, current deals. And if he wants to win a Super Bowl, that's fine. But he has to understand that these top teams that are legit Super Bowl contenders don't have $1 billion to give you. They just don't. Like, even if it was the Bills, like the Bills are, dude, they got money they got to spend on other players. Like, they're not going to be able to give Myles Garrett, make him the highest paid defensive player in the league immediately. Like, what is it? Do you want to win a championship, or do you want to go to a team like the Commanders where you're a Super Bowl contender, of course, but you're not like the Bills or these other teams, legitimate teams that are there right now. Like, that's the thing I'm curious with Myles Garrett, is where his head's at. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and he thinks, well, maybe, and Adam Schefter brought this up on Pat McAfee, maybe the Bears could be classified as that. Like, that's where I'm at with it. Is like, what does Myles Garrett really want? Do you want a legitimate, like a Bills, a Lions, even though they fell short, I get this year, but no one would deny they're still one of the best teams in the league. The Chiefs, like, are you talking about those types of Super Bowl contenders? Or are you just talking about a team that'll pay you and you'll be in a better situation? If it's paid first, the Lions can't afford that. I don't want to give Myles Garrett, make him the highest paid defensive player. But if I can get him for 2 years under contract and he can compete for a Super Bowl, I'll tell you this, Myles Garrett, the Lions have the assets to do it. The Browns can trade him to the opposite conference. You don't have to deal with him. He's in the NFC. And they have draft capital. And they have the money to take on the $20 million cap hit. So, like, I would love it, guys. I would love it. Now, would Brad Holmes do it? That's another thing. I personally, this is kind of that. There's another level to these type of trades. Like, this is kind of the, Les Snead class of guys that'll go all in for players. I don't think Brad Holmes is that. He's probably going to keep these draft picks. But my whole point is, you're not going to find a Myles Garrett late in the first round. It's just not going to happen. That's my prediction. So, will they deal him? We'll see. The Browns seem pretty stingy about even dealing him. They seem like they want to keep him.
I don't think they're going to do it, to be honest.
But my thing is, and I'm curious with this, is Myles has a lot of the power here because he can make this thing very ugly. It's just really what he wants to do. Like, maybe like Adam brought up, Adam Schefter, maybe they say, hey, we'll make you the highest paid defensive player, and he stays. But maybe he's like, screw that. I got money. I'll sit out if you don't want to trade me. I'll sit out. Now they're like, well, fuck, and his value is going to depreciate. Now they're in a tricky situation. Like, he was asked, Andrew Berry was asked for 2 first-rounders. He said, hell no. Like, no.
Like a week ago, yeah. I mean, it was within the last 7 days, and they said they've known about this for weeks.
So it probably would be. I mean, Khalil Mack went for, 2 firsts and like a couple mid-round picks, I think. And he's better than Khalil Mack, and that was Mack in his prime. That was like 27-year-old Khalil Mack. So he's probably going to ask. It's probably going to be like 3 firsts, to be honest, or 2 firsts.
I don't know. Yeah,
second. It'll probably be. I don't know. I think if they trade him, they're probably going to want,
because his contract isn't egregious either. So that'll probably command a little bit more picks. It's not like you're trading for that max contract that he just signed to. So that'd be like, well, we're inheriting a large contract with that. They're like, okay, throw in a second, throw in another first, whatever they want. But I do think there's a situation for the fact that he is in Cleveland, but not the fact that he's in a San Francisco, a Kansas City. He's not just being like, okay, I want attention. I want to get out of here. Like, I think it'd be different if he was, for example, we see culture issues in like Philadelphia. If he wanted out of Philly, he'd be like, all right, they'll probably get it settled. But we've seen, I mean, he just brought up Jeff did, Khalil Mack. We've seen Von Miller when the Broncos take a dip, especially when these players are in their prime and they're just making it vocal like, hey, I want out of here. I've done this city no wrong. I simply just want to leave. I've done what I could in my time here. I do think there's a chance that he leaves, especially when you look at what Cleveland's in right now. They need the definition of a reset button. Okay, you got a rub and tug at quarterback. Your wide receiver one is Jerry Jeudy. Nick Chubb's knees are officially cooked. Offensive line is done. I love Denzel Ward. He's 28, 29 years old. The linebacker they have, JOK, hurt, just had a huge injury that could affect him possibly retiring, that reports are saying in the middle of the season. On the defensive line, all you have is Myles Garrett. Juan Thornhill, who's supposed to be a big free agent signing, is terrible. Like, they have nothing in Cleveland right now, literally nothing. And this is where they have been for their whole franchise outside of the Baker Mayfield run when they traded for OBJ, when they traded for Jarvis Landry. So they need to figure out a way to just simply hit the reset button. As long as they have Myles Garrett, like, that's great that you have Myles Garrett. You're not winning anything with Myles Garrett. They need to figure out a way to dig themselves out of this Deshaun Watson cesspool that they found themselves in, where they have the worst contract in NFL history, and try to find a way to overcompensate it, because they're taking a quarterback. They're taking a quarterback with the second overall pick. I think they would be brain dead if they didn't, regardless of how weak the quarterback class is. You have to take a quarterback. You can't throw Dorian Thompson-Robinson out there again. And when you look at, okay, Myles Garrett, last 2 years of his contract in his prime, he wants to get paid again. Do you think he wants to play and watch Shedeur Sanders develop for truly his prime and win maybe a wild card game at best? No. So I think, and I get what both of you are saying, where it's very unlikely for Cleveland to want to trade him, but they're almost in a point where they're cornered and they have nothing to do. Like, if you take a quarterback in the second round, great. So you got your second, or in the first round, great. You got your second round pick, third round pick, that's great, but you're not going anywhere. You have to wipe the slate clean, and unfortunately, that's by finding a way to get rid of Deshaun Watson, that whole situation. And I think it does have to be with getting rid of Myles Garrett. That's how you clean house and rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, Klotz, I'm with you on that. I mean, I think they're in a situation, and it's really, I think it's Andrew Berry over there that's in a situation like they put themselves in this situation when they signed Deshaun Watson, to where they dug themselves their own hole, and they knew what they were doing when they make that trade. Probably the worst trade in NFL history at the end of the day. And it's like, the reason you don't want to end up making this, this Myles Garrett trade is because you're basically just showing like, yeah, that was, we messed this whole thing up. Like, this whole rebuild, everything we did, the way we built this team, like, we messed that up. And that's why I think they're kind of hesitant to getting rid of him. And yeah, they have already said, and the reports came out today, Klotzy, to your point, the reports came out that they've already said they'll give him a max deal. They'll give him whatever money he wants, all of that. And he's like, I don't really care. Like, the reports are, it's like he just wants to go to a winning organization and he wants a chance at a Super Bowl. Like, he doesn't really care about the max deal. Like, yeah, is he going to want to sign a deal? Probably. Like, you're probably not going to get him for the deal. Like, Jeff, I know you tweeted out the deal. Like, you're probably not going to get him on like the next 2 years of his deal, because there's no more guaranteed money left on his deal. So like, in the NFL world, it's probably very unrealistic to expect him to play the next 2 years with no guaranteed money. So like, he's probably going to ask for a deal. Is it going to be a massive max? No, but it's going to be he's probably going to have to, sign for a big amount, and that's going to be considered into all of it. So a team's going to have to give up a lot, and they're going to have to be able to pay a little bit more as well to get Myles Garrett. Like, that's going to come with it. But as well, it's just, to me, it's just like, is it worth it? Like, are you willing to do that? And I think you look around the NFL, the Eagles, the 49ers, the Chiefs, like all these teams that have won, this is the realization for me that's hit a little bit. Jeff, the one point I'll push back on you on, and we agree on most things, the only thing I'll disagree with you on, it's like, I don't really like the argument more so that, hey, Brad's drafted well later in the draft. Like, yeah, he has, but he's also like the hit rate low, like, and it's like this for any GM anywhere. Like, the hit rate lowers because the talent's not as good. He has found players, but like, he's also missed on a lot in those picks too, with injured guys or guys who don't develop or, just don't work out. And it's like, that's still a negative of doing it. Like, there is going to be a negative if you did trade for Myles Garrett. That's losing the first and second round picks if you have to give those up. And those typically, Brad Holmes, those hit at like 80%, 90%. compared to, your later rounds, which maybe it's like 40, 50%. So it's like, you're just going to have to take the good for the bad. And to me, it's like, is the good? It's good. It's Myles Garrett. You're probably going to win a Super Bowl one of the next 2 years if you get that done. And then you can figure it out after that. And just like Les Snead and just like Howie Roseman and just like them in Kansas City, like they find a way. Like they make those big moves. And then guess what? When it comes down to it, they let a couple guys walk, they redraft and they reload and they figure it out. But they still have their core. And I think that's the biggest thing here with Detroit fans that need to look at it is like, no matter what, boys, like you're going to have Aiden Hutchinson, you're going to have Jared Goff, you're going to have Jahmyr Gibbs, you're going to have Amon-Ra, you're going to have Penei Sewell. That core is always going to be together. But there are these secondary players where it's like, you look at it in those big organizations all the time. They have guys walk every year. Fan favorites, people that they've drafted and built up. It just happens if you want to be consistently good because they make trades. They make big trades. They make big moves. So I'm just interested. I think if I gave it a percentage, it's under 5% it happens. But I think that Brad would make the phone call just to see and kind of get a feel for what the price looks like. And we've heard him do it about Max Crosby, Danielle Hunter. He's done it every time a big name's popped up.
Let's bring in our guest here, Kory Woods, to make sense of it all. Talk to him about the Lions. Covers the Detroit Lions for MLive.com. Our good friend, and as always, brought to you guys by BetUS. That is Kory Woods. Kory, how we doing?
Hey, what's going on? How you guys doing?
Hey, Kory, I need it. This is why I rely on you for this. All right, you're the kind of you keep us, you keep the fellas level-headed on this shit. All right, Myles Garrett requested trade. Lions Twitter goes up in flames. I know you've seen it all. And people probably texting you asking all these questions. I know they have. So, Kory, I want to go to you on this. One, A, should the Lions do it, or at least make the call and have interest? And then B, is it actually realistic? But first, before we get to the realistic part, I want your actual thoughts on trying to get a player like that for a Super Bowl run.
Well, first and foremost, it does take two to tango. So, I mean, if the Lions and both the Browns would have to agree on it, of course. But, I mean, I believe that it is GM malpractice if you don't even at least pick up the phone and call and have a conversation with the Browns about it. Yeah, they've come out and publicly said that they're not going to trade him. But they have to say that because now that Myles Garrett has gone out and publicly said that he wants out, they've lost a little leverage. And we've seen this stuff happen time and time again where a team says they're not going to trade a guy. And guess what? They end up trading that guy. So I think the Lions, they have to call and have a conversation with the Browns about it. And then if I would swing for the fences to go get him. I mean, I have an idea just based on previous trades about probably what it would take to get somebody of that caliber. But I mean, yeah, you have to go. You have to call to see what he's available to you and what you can make happen.
Hey, Kory, I do want to ask you, and I know we had a lot of conversations about the coordinators and last week as well. Now that we're kind of into it a little bit, the offseason, I do just want to get your feel on both of the coordinators and all of the, not just the coordinators, support staff that's gotten brought in, the passing game coordinator, all these different coaches that have gotten brought in. What are your thoughts on these kind of new pieces that Dan's built with his coaching staff?
I think it's an admirable job based on the type of turnover he's had in the week. I mean, okay, you lose Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator. What do? You go back out and you get John Morton, a guy who was a senior offensive assistant for the team in 2022, a guy that has written some of the plays that they've been using. He was a mentor to the guy, Tanner, that a lot of people want to promote to the job. And if you just look at his resume, I mean, this guy he was an offensive coordinator for USC, winning Rose Bowls with Pete Carroll. He had a raw deal with the Jets. So, I mean, if you go back and look at that team that he was the OC of, I mean, come on. No offense, but I believe it was Forte, Josh McCollum, you're not really getting much done right there. So there's that. Now, when it comes to Kelvin Shepherd, I believe that was a very, very smart move. You don't really want to probably promote two first-time coordinators, and by promoting Shepherd, go ahead and keep the room. You keep a guy that has the respect of the players, and there's not going to be too much of a drop-off in the message. Pass game coordinator, they brought in David Shaw. well, long coaching history, well respected. That's what I'm trying to say, well respected. And I believe that he's going to be able to come in there and do things. Brought in Casey Rogers to replace Terrell Williams. Solid move right there. I mean, I like the moves. We'll see how they work out. But the one thing I've got to tell people is that, these names that were kind of rather unknowns when Dan Campbell first built this staff. I mean, if he had the sense to go hire those guys and put them on his staff, I believe he has, like I said, he has a sense to go find replacements, and these have been some solid picks.
Hey, Kory, can you do us a favor real quick? I think it's a little laggy. Can you rejoin and see if it improves?
Yeah.
Just is it lagging a little bit? Just okay. All right, perfect. Cool. Make sure we get him all taken care of here. I know it was a little laggy. I want to see if he drops back. Maybe it'll fix it. But if Kory's speaking, I want to make sure he's people. Hey, there's no lag. Make sure he's good because he was spitting.
I was literally about to say the same thing. He was going off.
I want to make sure he's good. I honestly forgot. We didn't even talk to Kory about the David Shaw and John Morton.
No, I couldn't remember the timeline on it last week. I know we talked to the doc on it, but I wasn't sure the full timeline on because it was throughout the whole week that guys were getting hired. It felt like it was like every other day there was a new hire on the staff.
Let's get him back in here. Let's see how it is. All right, Kory, we got you back. How is it now? Let's see. Wait, I wonder. Is it a little better?
I think so.
We're just like eyeing him up. Yeah, go ahead, Klotz. Go ahead.
You're good. Oh, we'll just leave it like this because even remember, boys, when I was out in the garage, when you go full screen to make it way more laggier then. So we'll just stay like this, Kory, so don't stress about it. But last week, Mobile, Alabama, Senior Bowl. You look at the Detroit Lions, they obviously have off-season evaluations. You got the Senior Bowl, you got pro days, NFL Combine, obviously interviews during the Combine. How much do you think the Lions value that Senior Bowl opportunity? Because you look this year, there's a lot of wide receivers, but then you see guys like Mike Green going off. And you look at that and you're like, okay, Brad Holmes probably loves seeing those guys that you can't really get a close look at. How much do you think they really value that Senior Bowl compared to the other competitions that they have during the evaluation process?
I think with this coaching staff and who the GM is, Brad Holmes, I don't think anything is off the table as far as when it comes to evaluation. I think Brad Holmes looks at everything because you got to remember, he's pretty much, when he was with the Rams, he pretty much worked in basically every phase of scouting. I mean, that is Brad's thing, scouting players. So I think that he takes any advantage, any type of take, whether it's the Senior Bowl, East vs. West game, UFL stuff. I think he's looking at everything to be able to find that diamond in the rough that nobody else is looking at, that they can bring into Detroit, bring it to Allen Park, and absorb them into that Lions culture and teach them their way and be able to win. So I think he looks at everything.
Yeah, Kory, another thing here, we got free agency coming up, guys that they may resign, may not resign, and we're going to talk about it today. But when you have a guy like Tim Patrick, who's a veteran wide receiver, and he was productive this year, when you have a guy like that who has the experience he has, it's hard to just assume, we'll just go get a guy who's 6'3", 6'4" in the draft that can fill that role. But with Brad and how well he's drafted, is it crazy to think that they might not bring Tim Patrick back and replace him in the draft? Or do you think they would lean on his experience in a year like this? How do you think they handle the Tim Patrick stuff?
I think he's a guy that you have to bring back, or at least try to, because here's the thing: you lost J-Ray, and that you have to replace the production. Now, Tim Patrick replaced that production. He had 394 and 3 touchdowns. But at the same time, he proved to be a reliable target for Jared Goff as the season went on. I would like to see him with this team, with the OTAs and training camp, and see what can be done there. Because, we've seen this from JG in the 4 seasons he's been here. Once he has that comfortability and rapport established with you, he starts taking a lot more chances in the offense. So I think that's a guy that you do try to bring back because he just seemed to fit in, and a locker room seemed pretty well liked. But at the same time, if Brad has shown, if there's a guy in the draft that he feels is good for the offense, he has no problem either trading up to go get him or trading back and just kind of playing a little bit of chess. That's how you got Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round. So I don't think it's anything. I don't think it's a crazy idea, but me personally, I see them trying to bring Tim Patrick back and pretty much making this a very defensive heavy draft. They need really a lot of depth on that side of the ball. And when you look on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, it's pretty much set.
Yeah, I want to ask you too, Kory, just when it comes to these extensions, I mean, we're going to start looking at a couple guys that are due, Kirby and JMO. I think I might be missing someone else, but there's a couple guys that might get extended this offseason. What are your thoughts on those, and who do you think ends up inking a deal to get these extensions? Because those conversations, like with the Myles Garrett and even free agents, like all of that kind of ties in now. We're at the point, I feel like, in the Lions fan base to where everything falls on these extensions with all of these guys that Brad Holmes has drafted, because they're starting to get to that point now. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you see happening this offseason?
Well, see what that Myles Garrett domino looks like first before you start getting into the extension talks, because, I mean, some of these guys are still on the rookie deal, so you still got club options on them and whatnot. You can kind of just play the game right now, and, you know, do you really need to send them, or do you need to go ahead and see what's on the table for this generational pass rusher? So I think right now you got to kind of just see what the Myles Garrett stuff looks like, and then if you can possibly make that happen, then okay, figure out about the extensions afterward. But for right now, I mean, yeah, see what's up with Myles Garrett. You don't got to worry about those extensions right now, in my opinion.
And I got to ask it, Kory, just because I can see the chats going at it right now with the back and forth. We're talking about Myles Garrett, but another name that got brought up to be possibly traded was Cooper Kupp. Obviously, Jared Goff's old wide receiver in L.A. What are your first thoughts when you hear Lions fans say, bring Cooper Kupp home, reunite him with Jared Goff? What's your reaction when you hear Kupp to Detroit, when fans are saying that?
Well, here's my thing. Cooper Kupp is like on the hook for like $20 million. So I think whatever team gets him, they're gonna inherit that salary. So I think any team that, if the Rams want to successfully trade him, I think any team that gets him is going to try to get him on to restructure that deal. I think Cooper Kupp in Detroit, it's one of those situations where if you can get him for a real cheap from the cheap or a cheaper deal, it's one of those bring him in here and figure it out later. As we all know that St. Brown works out the slot a lot, as you know, obviously. So I think it's one of those things where if you get him on a deal that makes sense, bring him in, figure it out later. I mean, hey, John Morton, what is he known for? Working with receivers. So if you can get him on a deal that makes sense, bring him in here. Like the same thing with Myles Garrett. I mean, a lot of people are talking about, oh, don't trade the picks for the future. I mean, look, Myles Garrett is 29. Right now, we're just thinking realistically, it would probably take something like either 2 firsts and third, or 2 firsts, a fourth, and a player. My thing is, okay, you're probably going to go edge in the first round this year anyway. You're not going to get any edge in that draft that is a reigning defensive player of the year, 4-time first team All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler. So you punt that first rounder. You go to next year's first round. Okay, you're missing out on that, but look, still open. You still got your window open. So you're really only missing next year's first rounder if you want to look at it like that. And then people are talking about, oh, he wants a big deal. You're not the Fords. Don't worry about their money. Let them work the salary cap out. That's what they're paid for. Teams have found a way to pay Patrick Mahomes $500 million and still acquire talent with him. Figure the rest of the stuff out later. But I don't know. I'm a little bit rambling there. But yeah, if you got a chance to get good players in here on deals that make sense, get them in the building and figure it out.
Yeah. Well said, Kory. We appreciate you. Keep up the great work. Appreciate you joining the show. Check out Kory on X and all social media platforms at Kory Woods, and check out his stuff, mlife.com. Does a great job covering the Lions. Kory, we appreciate the wise words, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you, Kory.
Appreciate you, Kory.
There you go. The man, Kory Woods, brought to you guys as always by BetUS. But yeah, sorry about that. Kory is having some little bit of connection issues there, but you got what he said for the most part, just about the premise of what he was saying there. Like,
it feels like a lot of people, and there are, obviously we saw, Jeff, people on Twitter who aren't fans of the Myles Garrett thing. And listen, like 7 days ago, I wasn't. And it wasn't just Myles Garrett. It was just more so getting rid of Brad Holmes' first and second round picks. But when like Kory, when you break it down and you feel like if we only have to give up, let's say this year's first and then a fourth and maybe another first, then it's like, okay, like you're basically trading in, a rookie edge rusher for Myles Garrett. And then you're missing out on another first and a fourth. Like that's essentially all it is. And that's when you like look at it in that way, you're like, okay, that's actually worth it because you're adding basically like the next 2 years. The only argument someone could have, and it's the one that I had last week that I think makes any sense, is like the contract where if you draft a rookie, you have a guy at a 5-year deal, 4th-year option, where that's like very valuable, but like outside of that, like the talent wise, maybe you can find, maybe there's a guy in these next 2 drafts that ends up being, one of the best edges in the NFL in the next couple of years. But it's like, you have to find him and you have to hope you hit on him and you have to hope you're the one that drafts him. And you do that. And it's like, unless you have a top 15 pick, probably not happening at the end of the day.
It's like Abdul Carter probably, but he's going to be a top 3 pick.
And that's the kind of reality of the situation you're in. And that's why you do see teams like the 49ers making moves or the Eagles making moves. I did bring up the Eagles. Like I honestly, the Eagles have done such a good job drafting the first 2 rounds with those, the defensive line. Like they found it with Jalen Carter and those guys. But again, that's like a top 10 pick there with Jalen Carter. So you have to kind of give and take and see what you want. But I get that point. That's where I kind of get into that. I mean, it just makes it more like your 2nd and 3rd round picks are that more valuable if you give up your next 2 first. Yeah. Like that's your 2nd and 3rd round picks. You're looking at those like, we really need to get some dudes there. And like it kind of values everything down to where you really have to look at what positions you need to upgrade and you need to use it like that. And that's where like Brad usually hasn't done that. But if you make a winning move, like guess what, boys? Lions and Brad Holmes have never been in the position they're in. They have a chance. Like they've gone in the playoffs, the NFC Championship and the 1 seed, lost both of them. And like you lose next year, guess like you're now in that conversation of the 49ers. Like, will they ever get over the hump? Will the Ravens ever get over the hump? Like, will any of these, like the Eagles right now, will they ever get over the hump? Like that's where you get that conversation if you lose next year. And I don't think Brad wants to lose another year. I think that man's looking at it saying, I want to win a Super Bowl now. And I mean, that's where I'm starting to turn my mindset to.
Yeah, I mean, with the Eagles, too, they had the opportunity of drafting Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, and they also had Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham in front of them, so they had a chance to develop, and those are already great players. You just go look, and we talk about the Chiefs all the time. Obviously, they're going to be in 3 straight Super Bowls. Look at last year, 1st-round pick, Xavier Worthy, very, very fine pick. 2nd-round pick, Kingsley Suamala, that BYU tackle. You go before that, the 1st-round pick in 2023 was Felix Anudike Uzama.
I actually liked him, yeah.
And it's just, and then you go, the year that definitely does stick out where they fucking cooked was Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis in the 1st and 2nd. Then you look down, they got Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th. But the year before, no 1st-round pick. The year before that, the 1st-round pick was 32nd overall, Clyde's Edward-Helaire. Year before that, no 1st-round pick. Year before that, no 1st-round pick. The year before that, Patrick Mahomes 1st overall. So they've had 3 1st-round picks in the past since Mahomes. And they just keep adding guys. They keep selling guys. But you look at it, they're hitting in those middle round of the drafts. And Brad Holmes, I would put him up there with the Les Sneads, the GMs of the NFL, the elite ones. Brad Holmes is right up there. So if you have to sit out 2 1st-round draft picks, that's fine. I even look at GMs that aren't that good. Like if you look at the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, not that good of a GM. But when they traded for Amari Cooper, they went from missing the playoffs to consistently in the playoffs. When the Bears traded for Khalil Mack, they went from missing the playoffs to going to the playoffs with Matt Nagy and Mitchell Trubisky. I think there is importance in giving up 1st-round picks if the players are there. And with the Lions, how they sit to what you guys have already been saying, you're not going to find a Myles Garrett. You can find a TJ Watt once every blue moon past the 25th overall pick. But when you're talking about Myles Garrett, you don't find him. That's like saying, oh, you can find another Aiden Hutchinson this year. No, you can't. You can't.
Hey, whoa. What was that TJ Watt shot?
Because you could say, oh, well, TJ Watt was the 26th overall pick. You can find Myles Garrett, TJ Watt's late in the draft. No, you can't. You can't find TJ Watt. That was a once in a lifetime. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's a one-off. Like, those guys don't just happen.
Yeah. It's really just you're trading the unknown commodity for a known commodity. But the thing is, with that unknown commodity, there's you kind of know the percentage of it being Myles Garrett, and it's not very high. Like it just, like you said, it just doesn't happen. So that's
go ahead. Sorry.
That's where I'm at with it, basically.
Yeah.
Is it going there?
I was just gonna say, like, again, like I don't want people in Klotz. Like I get like there's a big risk to it too, boys. Like that's where I think there are some fans, and like I do like Jeff. This is the not playing both sides, but being like I understand fans because like, and this is where I disagree with you when you bring up the points of, hey, Brad's done so good drafting on the back end. Like that's like a risk still. Like if you give up your first two, like it's a risk, and you have to hope. Like Brad hasn't always drafted that great later in the draft. Like he's drafted some wide receivers who haven't worked out, but then he's gotten the Amon-Ra in those. Like he's drafted some guards that are developing, and we like Colby Sorsdale, and we may never see him. Like those are the risks you're going to have to take and hope that he can hit on the Amon-Ra's and the Kirby Josephs more over the next 2 or 3 years if you do make that move. I'm not like, and I like Jeff, I get your argument. Like he has, like there's this little sample size, but again, there's a risk that once you get in those, like that's where I do understand where people would push back a little bit. So, but again, it's the risk greater than the reward. Like, no, the reward's a lot greater than that risk of that.
How about this? And because I'm going to be honest, I really don't feel like going back and forth about it, but I'll say this. I'll ask you, can we agree then he's in the upper echelon of drafting in the mid rounds of other GMs in the league? Could we agree there?
Yeah. I mean, he's found guys. No, I mean, he's found guys. You just look at the last couple of years, like outside the first 2 rounds, like Hendon Hooker, who probably will never play for you. Broderick Martin, who everyone's already questioning. Colby Sorsdale, who people are saying he's done. He's already getting passed up by Christian Mahogany. Antoine Green, who's off the team. I know, but Jeff,
picked a bad one.
Jeff, no, I'm not. That's literally one full draft. That's one full draft. Jeff, you're not understanding my point. My point is, you're getting rid of those top picks. You're going to have to hope that he doesn't have one of those drafts in next year. Like you want him to have the Mahogany. You want him to find the Rodrigo, the Kirby
Wingo
Joseph.
this year. I mean, Wingo's
the Wingo. Yeah, but I mean, Wingo, we still haven't seen him. So like we can use that. But my point is, it's like, Jeff, you're not getting the Gibbs, the Campbell, the Laporta, the Branch, the Terrion, the Hutch, the JMO, the
Kirby.
You said
Branch. We're talking about first round picks.
We're talking about, I'm talking about first, second. My whole argument with all this is first, second, because what you keep saying is Brad's so good in the second half of the draft, later in the draft. It's like, no, that's a risk. That's a risk. Like I can go through it again. Like Jamar Jefferson, Derek Barnes worked out. Iffy worked out. Amon-Ra worked out. Chase Lucas didn't. James Houston didn't. James Mitchell didn't. Those are players. I'm just naming to you the ones that didn't. Like there are more that didn't work out than there are that have later in the thing. So to me, it's, hey, you get rid of those picks there. Like you can get rid of those first and seconds and take that reward of getting Myles Garrett. But I see where the people are saying there is that risk of Brad having a draft where you outside the first and second, you get Hendon Hooker, Broderick, Colby, Antoine Green. Like there is that. It's hard to hit in those rounds. Brad is one of the better ones in the NFL. Finding but you keep saying it, Jeff, like it's a guarantee. Like no, you have to understand. You have to understand with the fans. Like the fans that are looking at it are like, there is a risk of that. Like Brad had a draft to where he really didn't find one starter outside of the first or second round. He didn't. Like it's a fact. Like he had a whole draft, but people don't look at that because they look at the Amon-Ra, the Derek Barnes, those guys, the Kirby, which I agree. But again, you do have to look at that. Like that's the side to where people that don't want this to happen, like there is actually a risk on that side. That was my argument last week, where it's like those first 2 rounds are very important for Brad. He typically hits in those rounds. But outside of those, he's brought guys in that are very good. But there is a sample size to where it's like, dude, you could be the best GM of all time, and you're not hitting on 50% of your draft picks and later, on day 2 and day 3. That's just the way it is in the NFL. It's impossible. That's a risk.
Don't you think they're in a position though, Booner, now that they're 2025 window?
Yeah, they are. No, they are.
But yes, hold on. That's that. My point being is, I don't see it being much of a risk. Because if you bring in Myles Garrett, I think we could all agree Myles Garrett would be very.
I'm Klotz. I'm with you 100%. I'm just saying when Jeff says,
you don't even know what I'm going. Like, okay, so if you're going to say you don't need those if you have to hit on those picks, I don't think the Lions are in a position where they have to because they have such a good team. Outside of Christian Mahogany this year, this rookie class was a bust.
Klotz, this is why I cut you off. I never said he has to. Jeff just said you're able to make that move because Brad's been good in those rounds. I don't think that's a guarantee. I think there's a risk to it still. Like there is a risk. That's a fact. I'm not saying anything.
My point is we're saying it's way more of a. Like you're saying it's a risk. It's an
obvious
risk though? Like if Myles Garrett comes here and is good, let's say he's just good, not great, and the Lions don't have 2 first-round picks, they're still in both those years going to be a Super Bowl contender. Like I don't see the risk involved. That's my thing. It's like you have free agency, you have the later rounds.
Let me make sense of it, Booner. I think I know what you're saying. So you're saying the after rounds 1 and 2, statistically, not just for Holmes, but around the league, the percentage of hitting goes down. It's a risk. I agree with you. My point is I've never used the word it's a guarantee he hits in these rounds. What I'm saying is when you have a GM like Brad, who is, and this, I do believe this. I don't know if we've ever really talked about this, but if you're an elite GM in the league, what separates the good from the great is the ability to draft past the second round. That is what separates GMs.
I agree. And he's done it.
But what I'm saying is Brad Holmes is in that tier of he's very good. Does that mean he hits 100%? No one will, or 80 or 70. No one will. But I like his chances of finding players. Will he miss? Yes. I don't want that to be like he's a guarantee he's going to have all these draft picks. I just think when you have a guy like that, you're more able to do things like this because he's better than most GMs at it. That's all I was saying.
Now, both and this is the thing. Like you guys are like trying like the argument. Like there's no argument for me.
No,
I don't want the Klotz. I don't want you to be like, oh, Booner. My whole thing was Jeff had mentioned why would people be upset about this? Brad's been good in the second. Like that was kind of the wording that was you said, and I'm just saying this whole time. I'm just trying to say, hey, this is why people would push back a little. It's because when you look at it, it is a bigger risk to say, hey, and like Klotz, you have the team, but you still need to be bringing in talent because again, when you get to that point after the 2 years. Like, yeah, you want to look short term, get a Super Bowl, but like on his mind, he's still looking a little long term to where it's like, hey, after those 2 years, like we're gonna have to let some guys walk. But you still have to bring guys in. You always have to. So it's like that's where I think Jeff went. Like that was why I was saying like, hey, I disagree because you say, hey, well, you shouldn't be mad, but like, yeah, there is that side to where, hey, I do agree with fans a little bit. There's a risk. I'm more so on the side where it's like I'm willing to take that risk. I'm willing to say, hey, take these first 2 rounds. The first round picks, and I will bet on Brad Holmes to hit on those picks. It's a risk though. It's like going into a casino and instead of betting like 5-1, it's like I'm going to bet 30-1 instead. And I'm taking that risk for a 30-1 parlay ticket, but I have a lot of confidence in it because I have Brad Holmes that's just made up my parlay instead of like having this other, the 5-1 in the first 2 rounds. Like that's what I'm saying with the risk to the reward. It's like you're going for a 15-1 parlay over a 5-1 parlay when you get out of those first 2 rounds.
Hey, but Brad's with a sharp.
But Brad has hit a couple 15-1 parlays, and you're sitting there and you're like, hey, I kind of want to roll with this guy. He's made some money off of it. And but again, Jeff, that was why I said earlier when you said that point, I was like, hey, well, like there is a reason fans can be a little bit like pushback on it. It's because of that. That was all I was saying.
I think I'm glad we got that out the way because I'm not trying to say like fans can't have like an opinion on that. My point was I believe when you have a GM like Brad in that upper echelon of identifying talent in the past the second round, I think you can use it to your advantage. That's all I was saying.
100%, and that's what other teams do. But like again, if a fan says, "Hey, Booner," I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I get you." Like there is a pretty big risk on that side. Like that's a big risk to take. I think the reward's worth it. I just put in a 15-1 parlay to cash out $1,000 and bringing in Myles Garrett. Like I'll love that payout. And like the payout's a Super Bowl. So like I get it. But again, let's not cover the fact up, boys. Like if you make that move, like those picks, like they become a little bit more.
Honestly, I'll even say I don't think
more important.
If you do a deal like this, I don't think Brad would take as many risks as he does with projects. Like I think
he goes back to the first year like with Amon-Ra.
Like those trying to find production, like guys that can produce. Like what I mean? Like Les Snead. They found Kobe Turner and Byron Young. Is it Byron Young? Is that his name? Byron Young. In the second and third round, but they started drafting really well when they didn't have their first rounders. Like, and I think Les Snead's in that class. Like Howie Roseman's in that class. They can draft anywhere. I want to make that very clear. Anywhere.
I agree, but like, dude, it's just to me, it's like when I think about this earlier today. that 2023 draft class, like the first 4 picks were so elite and so good that no one looks at the last 4 and goes, "Oh, we really didn't get anything out of those last 4 picks." Like you have your backup in Hendon, but again, he's never going to touch the field.
Like, yeah, I get it. But that's where I'm at. I understand the risk. I just think I do believe Brad's in that like rare category. Like, not too many teams are finding like your like a lot of these players like Amon-Ra, Aleem, Kirby, like some of your foundational pieces weren't even first or second round picks. Like,
and this is Tyler. He said picks aren't facts, but like that's exactly what I was saying for the fans that are questioning. It's like, hey, like they're not fat. Like, and honestly, like Brad, I mean, he could cook, dude. I do trust Brad. I think Brad will be able to find guys in the second and third still. I'm not worried about it.
And it's a little different now because, and I'm not saying this to say Brad can't do it, but it's different. You're not going to have top 10 first rounders. You're going to have 25 to 32. And last year was his first year experiencing that. He had the 20. He traded up, right? To what was Terran Arnold? 20. He picked 24. So he traded up. Yeah, traded up to 24 to get him.
Oh, and my gosh!
It's not ruled out yet with Terran Arnold, but
like this comment.
What? But like it's going to be a little different going
since
forward.
Branch Holmes has drafted 1 starter and 10 picks. Like he's built the team already. That's where I think people don't understand a little. Like he has built the team already. So it's like, yeah, as you get better as a team, like.
And I think that's what you were saying, Klotzy, earlier about that. Like when you build a team, maybe you're not as pressured to hit on like a.
There's less like let's say bomb drops. Like it turns into the worst possible situation that the Myles Garrett trade could ever go to. Myles Garrett tears an ACL, career over. Like the Lions still have everybody on the roster. So it's the chat was even saying like Cleveland's completely capped out from the Deshaun Watson trade. Like you're most likely, if you acquire Myles Garrett, you're most likely not trading a player. If you were, it would have to be a really good player on a rookie contract. So you're not going to have to give up as many picks. So the roster isn't going anywhere. Now, to Booner's point, you do have to rely on those. If you give up a first and second, you got to rely on the third, fourth, fifth. You do. But at the same time, you also have free agency. So it would suck. Like it would be a very big disappointment. But it's not like if the Jacksonville Jaguars were just go sell their mortgage, get Myles Garrett, now he gets hurt. Now they are truly fucked because their future was built around Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is a piece to this future, which is crazy to say. Very fortunate time to be a Detroit Lions fan to be able to say that. But he adds to the future. He's not the future, which would be a situation elsewhere for other teams.
Yeah, my whole point with all of it is just like there is a risk side to it. There is, like,
and you are right.
Someone gets hurt, or like you are stuck at the end of the day. Like you give up top tier picks, like you're stuck with later picks. And I'm not saying Brad hasn't drafted great. He has, but like there are times where like the best GMs in the world can't hit 100% or even 70% on those late picks. So like there's a risk to it, to where if you end up just having to live off those picks and something happens, an injury, knock on wood, or you lose again the next 2 years, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, we just lost the next 2 years. Myles Garrett's now gone. We didn't give him the contract. We let him go after that second year. And we don't really have everything with it. We weren't able to draft the last 2 years to keep this thing afloat a little bit. So that's the risk. That's the risk. But I think guys like you, Jeff, who have been all in on it, and Klotz, that's all I was trying to say here is like, I just want you have to know the risk on the other side, because there is one. It's not all butterflies and rainbows. If you trade for Myles Garrett, there isn't a side of it to where it could go bad.
No, and I do, and I understand that, and I actually appreciate you. I mean, you even mentioning it, because it's good to look at both angles. It's not all sunshine and flowers. Like, this shit could go wrong too. That's a risk, but it's like you brought up the casino example, and I love how you use Brad as, Brad's like the professional, whatever you call it. What would you call it? Like a sharp, or what is he like?
He's a sharp. Yeah, he's a sharp in Vegas. Brad.
Like Holmes. I would feel like if I had Brad in my ear as a sharp, and you're like, Brad's like, listen, man, you could lose money here. I'll be like, fuck it. I got this sharp right behind me. We're doing it, But if let's say, like, all due respect, like Klotzy's behind me, and Klotzy's like, yo, put it on red.
Oh, man, don't do
like,
that.
All due respect, if Klotzy's like, put it on red, I'm gonna say, I'm not putting it on red. Like, I'm just not. But if Brad's like, hey, put it on, 13, I'm throwing it on 13. So there's always that risk. I could go home with no money with either situation, but I ain't trusting you, Klotz. I'll say that.
You can go home more profitable with Klotzy possibly too. Yeah. Take the risk. Take the gamble.
I could. You never know. There's always that. Well, hey, speaking of risks, Is it a risk to re-sign Tim Patrick? No, I'm just kidding. Well,
you gotta look at the other side.
No, Tim Patrick, very fine player, Klotzy.
Hey, real quick too. I'm sorry, JT Olson. This is just listen. This is my point with all of this. There's other angles of this. There's also a scenario where the Lions keep the picks and they draft bust and never win the.
I mean,
yes,
too.
Yes,
Yeah.
like that's right. I think it's just like Jeff. That, and I'm not calling you out, but like when we had this conversation, sometimes, and I do it all the time. And then I come in a week later, like today, and I'm like, hey, I kind of see the light a little bit, boys. But it's like there's that tunnel vision. It's like you have to do this, you have to do this. That was all I was trying to say. Is like, boys, listen, like you do it.
Hey.
There are people. I understand the people who.
Hey, Boone, you're my
boy.
You tell me the risk, but guess what? As your boy, I understand the risk, and I'm jumping in. I'm going in.
I want the reward.
Boone told me my parachute might not open. I'm fucking jumping. All right.
You said you're jumping in.
Yeah, I'm jumping, and then I'll pull it on the way down, and we'll see what happens. And I'll take it from there. pull the chute. Sicko.
Jeez,
All right. All right, Tim Patrick.
Timmy P, man.
Speaking, jumping with no parachute.
Can I just ask a question about Tim Patrick, dude?
Yeah, go ahead.
To Klotz. This was my segment, and this is Klotz.
You better watch what you're about to
No,
say.
and this is nothing against Tim Patrick, Klotz. This is just realistic, and this goes in with a kind of the conversation we just had a little bit. Offensively, outside of offensive line, let's take offensive line out, right? Let's look at the weapons you have. What's the one position you would say offensively you can kind of upgrade or find someone better on a deal? Honestly, no, outside of
Tim Patrick.
it's Tim Patrick. That's where I kind of had this guy, and I put it in the prep today because my thought process was, and I've seen some mock drafts from Detroit Lions now of people around the country doing Lions picks, and in the third, fourth round, or even sometimes the second, the Lions taking a wide receiver, big body like Tim Patrick to replace that. It's only 400 yards of production, maybe even less, and a couple touchdowns. And most of the touchdowns was in one game. My thought process with this, Klotzy, and this is honestly, I know you're a big Tim Patrick guy, and I thought just maybe I can show you the light a little bit, and I think you will at some point because you do love wide receivers in the draft.
I do.
My thought process is on this. It's like, hey, yes, I would love Tim Patrick to return. The age he is, the injuries he's dealt with, at some point, like he's not a long-term piece on this offense. But if you could find a way in the second, third, fourth round to go get a big body wide receiver and you find a guy that you really like how Brad got, what did he get? Amon-Ra in the third round? Fourth round, you go find a guy, not like Amon-Ra, but I'm talking about like the style play of Tim Patrick, and you go find an absolute dog. You have him on a rookie deal for 4 years, Klotz. And if you can do that and Brad falls in love with the guy, or maybe Klotz, you fall in love with someone at the combine when we're there, I personally would rather lean on doing that than signing a 1-year deal with Tim Patrick for another year. And I would rather find another guy who can go for a couple years like you did with Amon-Ra a couple years ago. Like that's just my thought process. It's not me saying get Tim Patrick out of town. No, I love Tim Patrick. I love the man, Klotzy. But you see, like, I think like if we're looking at it in a realistic standpoint, being like, hey, with money and as well as like a long-term success, it goes back to, hey, you have to find guys long-term because you're going to have to move on, or you might want to bring Myles Garrett in. That to me, if you fall in love with the dude in this draft, you do it. And then after the draft's over, if you don't, hey, Tim, we still got a spot for you. I'm sure Tim's not even in a rush, to be honest. I'm sure he's not in a rush. And then people say he's cheap. I get he's cheap, but if you can find a guy that can give you 350 yards of production at that position, but you have him on a 4-year deal, on a rookie deal, and a late draft pick deal, that's better. Like, Tim's cheap, but that's probably a 1-year deal, boys, like at the end of the day.
Well, boom. And first of all, I appreciate where you're coming from, trying to give me the other side.
Don't worry, Boone. I got you now.
And I will say your point of you can find a wide receiver in the draft at Tim Patrick. You are absolutely correct. You can find dozens. There's probably in the first 3 rounds, there's probably going to be 7 wide receivers that are better than Tim Patrick. That doesn't mean Tim Patrick can't be a wide receiver 4. This man was on a contract for $1.25 million. To your point, he's old. He's coming off 2 torn ACLs. I don't think Tim Patrick desires to go anywhere better. He's not going to go. Like, where's better than Detroit? You want to go to Kansas City, catch 40 balls? You're not going to do that. You're going to catch 15. In Detroit, you'll probably catch 20. So when you look at what Tim Patrick does, he's selfless. He loves fucking blocking. And he caught like 2 passes a game in Detroit. I don't think he's going to be mad if he catches 1 every 2 games. I think Tim Patrick, he's probably going to cost $2 million on a 1-year deal. What does that hurt? I don't see what that hurts. You draft a wide. I'm off, and we're going to be doing mock draft, boys. You bet your ass I'm going to be drafting wide receivers, the Detroit Lions, inside and outside guys. But I'm also going to be bringing back Tim Patrick because he's cost $2 million on a 1-year deal. What are we doing here? Like, we're acting like you can't do both. In my opinion, you bring in a guy that's exactly like Tim Patrick. I'm forgetting the guy at TCU. I think somebody just dropped his name in the chat. Dude just won the Senior Bowl MVP out of TCU. You bring him in, he's 6'4", 230, 40 pounds. Let him develop and even play in front of Tim Patrick. Just let him learn from Tim Patrick. We have Khalif Raymond. Khalif Raymond isn't a starter. He's Amon-Ra's backup, and he's going to be making more than Tim Patrick. The rookie wide receiver, if you draft him in the first 4 rounds, he has a chance to be making more than Tim Patrick. So I think Tim Patrick, great role piece. Boom, this is a guy that I would have thought that you preach. Like, hey,
I love
guys, but depth piece guys are great. Like, in my opinion, I'd rather bring back for the money Tim Patrick over a guy like Derek Barnes. Just because I know Tim Patrick, like, you know exactly what you're getting. There could be some injuries, but he's your wide receiver 4. If you bring back Derek Barnes, he's now your starting linebacker coming off an injury. He's been hurt before, and he really hasn't shown you anything through his 17 stretch game a season. So Tim Patrick, far from the best player on his team. Far from
I think Derek Barnes has shown more.
There's going to be numerous wide receivers better in this class. But you still bring back Tim Patrick because he's exactly what this team wants as far as an outside big body wide receiver. We are dying, hoping that Donovan Peoples-Jones could be that. And you had it last year with Tim Patrick. Just bring him back as a rotation.
By the way, Klotz, I just want to say Derek Barnes has shown more. Someone's echoing, by the way, has shown more than Tim Patrick over the last 2 years.
In Detroit, absolutely. My point being,
that's what I'm saying. But you cannot, Klotz. Hold on, Klotz. You cannot use Tim Patrick as when he was earlier. He has a different part of his career. So, yes, you've seen Derek Barnes to me has given you more the last 2 years than Tim Patrick did this last year. That's a fact. I'm not saying if I would rather do one or the other, I'm bringing Derek Barnes back over Tim Patrick if that comes down. Come on now. I'm just saying with Tim, you can bring him back. You can bring him back. At the end of the day, you have to find a guy at some point to replace Tim Patrick. You will. Why not go this year and get him? And if you want to bring Tim back, I'm just not going to sit here and say, hey, Tim's a guaranteed starter next year. If you go draft a guy, Savion Williams out of TCU, and he ends up being better than Tim, do it. But my conversation with this is, are you going to use a third or fourth round pick to get a wide receiver to kind of ask Tim Patrick his replacement? Yes, I am. Because that right now on your offense, outside of offensive line, out of all of your weapons, that's where your weakest link is. And you've been waiting for someone to step up in that spot. All the last 2 or 3 years, you had Josh Reynolds drop the passes. You've brought in Donovan Peoples-Jones, cut from the team. You have Tim Pat. That's been the one position offensively at your skill positions that you've been just fighting with for years now. If you can find a guy and you've tried to draft, find a guy in the 3rd or the 4th round and use one of those picks to go get a dude that he can go out there and give you some production over the next 4 years, hey, do it. Why not? I'm not emotionally attached to Tim Patrick, just like I wasn't emotionally attached to Josh Reynolds. I don't care. We can bring him back on if he wants to sign an event minimum at $2.5 million or $1.5 million, okay, so be it. Guess what? We're drafting the guy that's probably going to beat you out anyways in training camp. Sorry. But
I'm fine.
Dude, that's where I'm at.
The same page. I don't. My point was being you don't have to draft a wide receiver to let Tim Patrick go. My point with the Derek Barnes thing was Derek Barnes. Yes, he was better in Detroit than Tim Patrick has been over the last 3 years. Tim Patrick's been hurt 2 of the last 3 years. My point being Derek Barnes is going to ask for more than $2 million, more than 1 year, and that's not something.
Let's just leave Derek Barnes and
Tim
Tim
you brought
Patrick
it up
separate.
I'm saying
you said you brought it up and you used it. If I had to choose between one, dude, that's if I had to choose between one, I'm choosing no, I'm choosing Derek Barnes. He's giving you more production, and he's a starter on the. He's your starting Sam. No, I'm not
Barnes
doing
is
that.
probably the weaker link on the defensive side of the ball is what I was going to.
Not doing
You're going to have
that.
to pay him a lot more.
I'm not talking about Derek Barnes. We're talking about the wide receivers.
All right, well then.
You know why Klotzy's still on Spillane? He already has that. Klotzy's already got his replacement already lined up.
I mean, dude, honestly, Jeff, I texted you today and I was like, I want to do this. And I put it in there. And my mindset, I just want to know some wide receivers that can take Tim Patrick's spot.
Hey,
because
Klotz,
that's your weakest link.
agree.
And I'm like, I want Klotzy this summer to get me a wide receiver to take his spot. Klotzy pushback. Klotzy pushback. That's his new nickname. Klotzy pushback. The man, this man's Klotz. If you want to be a GM in this world, hey, can't get emotionally attached to guys like
giving
that.
him tips on how to be a GM.
I get emotionally attached.
I'm just thinking about the Broderick Martin and Marcus Davenport days right now. That's what I'm thinking about. And how I'm emotionally attached for nobody with no production. But
this has nothing to do with any of this. We're talking about Tim Patrick. You're emotionally attached to Tim Patrick. Just like Jeff was emotionally attached to Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like, let that go. You did.
How are you putting these two in the same stratosphere?
It's not about the type of player, Klotzy.
The emotional
understand. It's about the emotional attachment.
Honestly,
it has nothing to do with the production.
I might even go one up. I think this comparison with Klotz and Tim might be like me and Hendon. I think
oh my gosh, I wanted to throw my computer.
I'm asking this man to be the wide receiver 4.
I don't think you understand what we're saying right now.
No, not that you. Yeah, I got it. Not that you think he's gonna be the best receiver, but you love him. I know you love him.
Because what is it like? He's a perfect fit. We're acting like Hendon Hooker is a perfect fit. Like, what are we talking about?
No. I think it's all right. We were joking around with you. You're emotionally attached to him. It's a joke. But you know what I will say?
It's cool to be.
We all agree that they need to draft a wide receiver. We agree there. You know what I was looking up? And Jeff Risen did this. Jaden Higgins. We've been on Iowa State a lot. Jaden Higgins was their best wide receiver this year, right? 6'4", 15, productive. Like a dude like that, I don't know where he's supposed to go, but Jeff had him mock the Lions like the 3rd or 4th round. Dude, I'm on board with that. Get like a 6'4" dude that can eventually take his spot. I'm with Boone. Like, I know the offense. You got to learn the offense, and they have to trust you and all that stuff. But like, I wouldn't be shocked. They draft a rookie this year. He's pretty nice. Maybe by like mid-season or like you might.
I would love Jaden Higgins, dude. I would love him.
You might see that dude out repping Timmy P. He might be getting those.
That's where that's my whole thing with this. It's like that 3rd round pick. You got a comp pick. To me, it's like use it on that. Go get a wide receiver. Because typically, like what was it? Let me check. I have it pulled up here. Like just the other year, you got like the last wide receiver you drafted was in the 7th round, Antoine Green. Before that, Jameson Williams, your wide receiver 2 right now.
Yep.
And before that, Amon-Ra St. Brown, your wide receiver 1. 4th round and 1st round. Then the next one you draft was in the 7th round, Antoine Green. People were like, oh, maybe he could be something. Like, dude, he was hurt in college. It was a Brad Holmes, like, hey, a hurt guy, didn't play much, but played decent. Wasn't like that. It's like, hey, when we see Brad use a pick in the top 3-4 rounds with wide receivers, the man, I mean, I know he's only drafted 2 out of 3 though. Right? Like, so to me, it's like you have one clear weapon on the field to where it's like that's your weaker link outside of Amon-Ra, Gibbs, and Laporta or in JMO. Why not just be like, hey, let's just use that 3rd comp pick and go get yourself an absolute dude. Like, find yourself a stud wide receiver and hope that you're not going to get a 1st round wide receiver. Get Jaden Higgins. Bring him in to compete. That makes your offense that much better. It does. And you have him on a 4-year deal, on a rookie deal. And you don't have to worry. Like, I know Tim Patrick's a cheap deal. But again, you have a rookie 4-year deal. Your rookie 4-year deal. Like, you're locked into a guy that you know can be a dude for the next 4 years for you. And you could still sign Tim for a 1 year.
Like, you could do both. Like, I think we all are in this. We all on the same page. Like, you can bring Timmy P back. But I you know what people have to remember too is Amon-Ra is not, in his 2nd year. Like, these guys are getting older. Like, you can draft a rookie wide receiver. You have JMO and Amon-Ra, who's been in this offense for years, Khalif Freeman. Like, that rookie's in a good spot. And Timmy P's now been in the offense. Like, he's around some good players. And now they're not young. Like, I don't look at JMO as like he's young player, but he's been in the league for a handful of years. He's put up 1,000 yards. You bring in a young buck in here. I love it.
It makes sense too. Like, those guys, it's just, think about how Tim Patrick, like, he's at the end of his career, coming off 3 straight injuries with 3 seasons, and he still came in and gave you something. Think about if you get a young guy in that position, surrounded by the players and the offense that you have.
Not that I make this. I already see the chat where no one's saying the wide receivers they have aren't young. They're all young. The JMO and Amon-Ra, they're young. But what you're saying is, I'm with you, Boone. They're not rookies. They're in their what's Amon-Ra's 4th year, 4th year. 4th year, and then JMO's in his 3rd year. Like, hey, they know what they're doing now. Bringing a guy, you be around those guys, it'll be good for him. So, yeah, I like Jaden Higgins. I want to watch a lot more of him.
And what's his name?
Like
I just had his name. I just had him pulled up. Who was it?
I need a Tank Dell this year. I need a
Savion Williams.
I need an absolute dog.
Yeah, the slot guy. That you guys know my slot guy. That's Restrepo. The one out of TCU though that I like is that fucking Jack Beck. That he's like 6'2". He had like 1,600 total yards this year. Big body guy on the outside. Just won the MVP. His brother, and it's not even trying to be funny, but the whole thing was it's kind of crazy. His brother died in the fucking New Orleans attack. He was one of the people killed, and then he wins Senior Bowl MVP. You look back at him, you're like, dude, this guy was cracked. And you know who's talking about him? Steve Smith. Steve Smith's all over him. Steve Smith does not miss with his wide receiver takes. The only thing is, with both TCU, like I like them, but TCU, Iowa State, and Florida State are the wide receiver schools where I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm just like whenever those
it is
guys
a little different though, Klotzy. It's different. I feel like though now with the way that college football is. I could be wrong.
I don't know. Think about you could use Keon, but Florida State, they've had numerous guys. The last great Florida State wide receiver was maybe Kelvin Benjamin for that year.
Klotzy was Jalen Rieger TCU.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I might be out then.
No,
dude, Jalen Rieger.
There's just something
about
Jalen absolutely
Rieger,
right where it's you can't compare every wide receiver to the same coming out of that college, but it's just a thing where it's just you see these schools that consistently pump out NFL talent, the wide receiver, and you see these schools that constantly miss, and those are two of them where it's
What do you think of this, Klotzy? Should they have taken Leggett instead of TA? No. No. Okay. That's because they're both your guys. You're in a tricky one. You like them both.
I would have loved Leggett.
Wait, what about hold on? I want to see something. Hold on, boys. I want to see something.
He said, why not both? Trade back, double dip. Get them both. Leggett? That dude would be a character here. He'd be a beast. He could do TP's job, I think.
Imagine him and
you ever hear him when he was, I forget, he might have been talking to Amon Ra. He was talking to somebody about the food he was making for Thanksgiving. Oh, bro. Shit was wild.
Yeah, they probably love that dude, man. They just did.
Klotz, what about Lad McConkey? Would you have wanted Lad?
Would I have wanted Lad? That was a guy, I loved him last year, but it's one of those things where it's Amon Ra. You'd have to have two, which I'm okay with. But yeah, you can figure it out. But it's just one of those things where I thought there was wide receivers that fit better.
He would have been.
You draft Lad McConkey, that's a great fucking player. I'm like, huh? Got two great slot wide receivers.
You like Restrepo, don't you?
I love Restrepo. But what did we say right before the show? I was like, I wish I could do a breakdown of Restrepo and say this is why the Detroit Lions need to draft him, but they don't need to.
Where do you think he goes? He's top 60?
Second, third. I don't know how. He should be. And it's one of those things where it's measurables because he's 5'11". He's not that big, but he is just fucking open. He'll be the Puka.
Oh my gosh.
That guy.
Jalen McMillan. I'm just looking at wide receivers that went after.
What pick was Jalen McMillan? He was what?
Third round.
Third.
92 overall.
Third.
Yeah. I'm looking right now at some wide receivers.
This is actually spot on. Leggett is the black Theo Vaughn. That's actually pretty spot. That's a great comp, wild comp, but it's spot on. There, I don't see any lies in that.
No, that's a Lions guy. Xavier Leggett. They probably loved him coming out. I mean, there's always good receivers. That's another position I do believe, man. There's a whole bunch of them. First rounders, there might be another level to these guys. I mean,
I think the talent drops significantly at a certain point every draft, I feel like, with wide receivers.
But even Justin Jefferson, he was a late first, which is crazy to think about.
Jalen Reagor, what 2 picks before? I think the pick before him.
I'm just in this world. If Brad Holmes drafts a receiver in the first 3 rounds, I know he got it, dude. I just, in my opinion, because Brad, he doesn't draft receivers, and he's drafted 3 and 2 of them's hit, hit, and that's where I'm like, okay, if Brad drafts one in the 3rd this year, I'm like, Klotzy, I'm sorry. If it's a guy like Tim, I'm like, I'm sorry.
You gotta stop saying sorry. I was pounding the table for JSN when we took Jack Campbell.
It's good. I know I was there with you. I remember. I think I was doing the same thing, to be honest. We were looking at each other.
D-Mac on it too. He was
we were all in that little circle on the side, just like JSN. And they just kept falling. We were like, get him, get him.
I think we were the only two in that draft party that were happy about Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, and we were the first two to find out because I got a text message from someone in the building in Detroit. Remember Klotzy? And someone texted me, and I'll go, Klotzy, and it showed you. And then you were like, this is the dog. And me and you right away went and clipped the touchdowns. And we're like, this guy's a dog, dude. People started freaking out, though.
It's great.
People who love him now that were at that draft party on air who hated him then. Hated the pick. Hated it. Hated the Jack Campbell pick.
They folded.
Crazy, man.
Then he doubles down with Jack Campbell. That was probably such a painful draft for some people. If you didn't like Jahmyr Gibbs, because I wasn't all about the Jack Campbell pick, but I was elated with Jahmyr Gibbs. That I remember Braylon. I couldn't imagine.
Braylon walked out after the Jack Campbell pick. He's like, all right, boom, I'm out. I was like, all right, he's left. I was like, all right. I didn't even think the Jack Campbell one in the moment. I don't know. I can't remember what class.
I was mad about that one.
I wasn't but you knew Jack Campbell, Iowa guy. You're like, they just got a dog at the end of the day. That was in my mind.
My thing is the Jack I didn't love. We loved Jack the player, but we're like, damn, he went high. He just went high. Which again, take your guys. Me and Adam covered Jack. That was Adam's guy. I give him the credit. He loved Jack Campbell. Love that man. And then Jahmyr Gibbs. I understood the pick. I understood the player he was getting, Brad Holmes. I understand the talent. I might not agree with the philosophy behind it, but it's not like Jahmyr was a bad player. You know what I mean? Watching him, this dude can play. And my whole thing was if he becomes a weapon, like a 500-600 yard receiver type of guy, receiving yards type of guy with what he can do in the run game, then I understand that. We'll see what happens when a couple of years from now. But the pick, he's a great. I'm just saying, he's a good.
Honestly, my favorite pick of the whole draft that week was Brian Branch.
Me too.
I love
because I thought Packers were for sure getting them.
Yeah.
You know what?
That was my favorite pick of the whole draft.
Player, that was when Klotzy. We were working every morning. You love Sam Laporta, but the big thing for me is when we talked about a tight end, I always wanted a tight end at some point in the first 3 rounds. And me and Adam used to talk about some of the tight ends, and Sam Laporta, dude, watching his tape, watching his Iowa tape, I'm like, this dude breaks. It was it looked like a high school player coming out of high school.
Because he only had 1 touchdown on the season or something like that. Because Iowa never scored.
People are grabbing at his ankles. He's making people miss. I'm like, who is this man, dude?
Yeah.
This dude is a stud. That second round is historic.
I think that the first 2 rounds there, when it's all said and done, you're gonna have so many All-Pro players. I wouldn't be shocked if you have multiple Hall of Famers at the end of the day. I truly do believe that.
What's even funnier too is, do you remember people in shambles that they took Laporte over Michael Mayer? When I remember.
I'll say I would
with flannel.
At first, when it happened, because when we were doing it, and Jeff, I would love to look back at your when we did the tight end rankings throughout those weeks, because I don't know how many people, and you might have, but throughout the whole place we were at, I think everyone had Michael Mayer at the top, and everyone was like, Michael Mayer. Because I remember we did the second day of the draft show. I was hosting it, and up there, I was like, oh my gosh, Michael Mayer's on the board. We're going to get. And then when Sam Laporta, I looked around, I was like, oh man, how is this? Realizing, and the next hour, I think D-Mac showed up, and we watched some film off the air, and then he was saying, this guy might be a dog.
Yeah, I don't want to act like no one in their mind, or everyone in their mind knew Laporta was the clear better player. But I had them both similar. My thing was, and I think we did a mock draft for me. We drafted a tight end, and I think we had Laporta in that draft. I also had Michael Mayer in some, but those were the only 2 tight ends we really. Yeah. That was the 2.
It was between those 2 the whole time.
And Kincaid that year, Kincaid. I really liked Kincaid.
And who else? There was someone. Was that Robert Kraft? Was that not Robert Kraft?
It was DeAndre, the dude
Tucker.
from Georgia.
Tucker Kraft. I think it was Tucker Kraft.
I could be wrong. That draft had a ton of tight ends.
Yeah. I just remember the tight ends, and it was just I think the conversations, honestly, on shows where you could take any of them. It might not have been. It might have been the one Klotzy's talking about. I think it was just more
Georgia. Remember that big ass dude from Georgia?
Oh, Darnell Washington.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not Darnell.
Darnell was a couple years later. He was 2 years ago.
Yeah, Tucker was that draft.
So it's Tucker. I just remember there was a list of tight ends, and Lions fans and everyone was just just anyone. You could any of these tight ends. Just get us tight end. I felt like that was the conversation for the longest.
I just didn't want one in the first. So when Kincaid went, I was like,
yeah,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, tight end.
They're going to get one of these dogs.
That's why, like, I'm going to see Tyler Warren go top 15, and I'm just going to laugh because Brock Bowers was the exception. Like, Brock Bowers was the one guy. Like, you're just Eric Ebron.
There's another good tight end. You know what? I shouldn't have said that because I don't know his name. He's coming out this year. He's an absolute dog. You might know.
To be located in Bowling Green State University. Okay.
I think so. Is that the dude? He's like I think
they're blowing up the Senior Bowl right now.
Who?
The BGSU said I don't want to mess up his name. I always mess up his last name.
Who
Harold Fannin. Dude's like 6 foot though. That's the only thing. He's 6 foot, but he's crazy athletic. He's gonna have a tough time, but he literally
Harold Fannin, 50, almost 1,600 yards. I'm like, who the hell is
he
this
played
guy?
running back, tight end, wide receiver, wildcat, quarterback. Like that. Okay.
At
like,
Bowling Green, he played all those.
Yes, like in one season. In one season, he literally was the offense. Like that. I would not be surprised, and this would be a good conversation, boys. Okay, would you rather replace? Because we're talking like middle round picks. Would you rather replace Tim Patrick or Brock Wright? You can keep both. Like, I'm not going to say you got to release Brock Wright. I'm not going to be mad.
I'm with Boone. I would say Tim Patrick because I think tight end too. You're asking this dude to do the dirty work. Tim Patrick's going to have to catch some balls. You know what I mean? So I would probably go Tim Patrick.
Dude, at the end of the day, too, and people might not think it, but like Brock Wright does give you a lot of. I'm not saying he's like, oh my gosh, he's a game breaker. But to Jeff's point, like blocking and all this dirty work, like you got to remember, Brock Wright was about to leave to the 49ers, and the Lions basically wound up and paid him because they wanted him so bad to stay. Like I think maybe not in the building you see it or outside, like as a Lions fans, but I'm sure in the building, like Brock brings a lot to the table, and especially in some of the dirty work that Sam doesn't do, or when Sam's hurt, they can rely on him. But I would rather, I think, get a wide receiver. Like if you were like, hey, you can guarantee to have a wide receiver 2 that hits, or a dude that gives you 400 or 500 yards that hits for Tim Patrick, I would pick the wide receiver personally. Because you do have Sam Laporta, dude. Like tight
that's why I was just wondering
I know.
Depth spot.
By the way, this Pistons game, they're down 1. Or maybe 2. Let me see. They were down 1. Cade missed a 3 with like a minute left. Went down. They got a stop, and then Cade had a turnover. Both possessions down 1. Missed a shot and a turnover. Brutal.
It's all right.
Now Trae Young's at the line with 33 seconds left.
The
dude,
Hawks. I fucking hate the
listen,
Hawks.
Caleb. I love Caleb, dude. He sent a parlay today. And I looked at it, and I
didn't know he did.
No, like I was looking at it in our group chat, and I was like, he's great. Like I'm like he's usually always hits.
Oh my gosh!
And today he had Duren, rebounds, and assists. And I looked at it, and I go, this man ain't Jokic. Like why are we putting in his assists? He gets 1 today. That's the only leg that lost besides the money line. But I'm like, I'm gonna
be honest.
Caleb. I'm telling Caleb after this dude ain't Jokic. We're not betting his assists anymore. We're doing.
Can I be honest with you? I didn't see his parlay. I just didn't. I guess I must have missed it. He gave us a parlay the other day with Duren points and rebounds over 19.5. I took his exact parlay from the other day. I did Cade over 39.5 PRA. I did Duren over 19.5 points. All I need is money line. And then I needed Michael Beasley over 12.5. And I think I don't know if he hit it, but I just need the line, he did hit it. I just need the Pistons to win. I literally just took his same parlay from the other day because I didn't know he took one. So I was like, I just want to get something on the game. Yeah.
3 pounds and assists.
I literally just need Pistons money line.
Like this dude is about to have 4 assists, 5 assists. He's had games where he's had like a good amount of assists, but like I ain't dependent on that every night.
Why didn't he just stay consistent and just go points, rebounds?
He was getting cute. I'm gonna talk to him.
Yeah, sometimes, and I do it all the time, dude. I take a parlay.
He was flexing.
Oh, for sure. I told you I took that. I actually sent you that Pistons parlay. The one that I bet for like 4 straight games, and it hit like 4 straight games. I think I sent it to you guys at the first game, but I just kept betting it, and it hit like 4 straight games. Hey, when something's working, just roll with it until it doesn't, and then you can switch it up.
Tied up, boys.
Is it?
Yeah, they said you're young, Mr.
Yeah, 130, tied up.
Let's go, baby.
Cade.
Let me see.
watch the last shot. I mean, they got to.
I had the FanDuel TV pulled up here for a second.
Yeah, I'm about to open that bitch up.
I'm a little behind though. Cade just hit a layup. Yeah, it was Cade that hit it. Yeah, I'm about 15 seconds behind.
I have this graphic here I want to show you, fellas. Shout out to Pistons Talk, some trade deadline guys. Oh, by the way,
I'm interested.
By the way, Arande Gadsden the second. You know the name?
Gaston or Gatson?
Gats. You say it?
ST or TS?
Guy got confused. He didn't know.
I know a lot of Gastons.
No, Gadsden.
Disaster right now.
Gadsden.
All
yeah,
right,
Gadsden.
Don't know the name. Can confirm. Do not know the name.
Hey, look, I was checking him out.
Who is he?
Tight end, plays for Syracuse.
Okay.
No,
Dude, Syracuse has some guys this year. I'll tell you what, Klotz, I know the McCourt thing, you hate it, but like they had a good year. I'm just saying they had a good year. When you have a good year, so I mean, you start to see some dudes that you typically wouldn't see.
Turn around a program a little bit.
Yeah. So I want to hate it.
You know who's going to fly up the combine or after the combine is Elijah Arroyo, that fast ass tight end from Miami. That dude can fucking fly.
Wait, is that guy that's like 32?
Oh, I thought
no. That it's his backup.
Okay.
Arroyo. So you saying Miami's got weapons everywhere?
Oh, Miami definitely has weapons.
Why didn't they win?
That would be your reason, Boone. Mario Cristobal, that weak ass defense there.
Klotz, we had an argument. You said he's got Restrepo over the weekend.
You brought up. Well,
we don't have to do
Cam
this.
Ward has weapons. Shadur Sanders doesn't.
No, I said he has Travis Hunter. That is
it. And you're just forgetting about Jimmy Horn Jr., who's going to be a top 15 pick next year, wide receiver.
Jimmy Horn Jr. He's good. But he's not.
Jimmy Horn Jr. is elite.
Still, this guy's elite.
Arroyo, he's their tight end too, but he's like Isaiah Likely.
Oh my gosh, Trae Young just did an unbelievable shot over Malik Beasley. That was unbelievable.
No,
was that I think it was a 3 too.
For me.
An unbelievable shot, like unbelievable.
At least we're not Maverick fans.
That was, and honestly, in my head too, I was just thinking, there's no way this guy. Oh, it was a 2. It was a 2. Why did they give him 3?
Yeah, they did give him 3.
I don't know why.
Yeah, can we? You know what? Can we talk about that? Like,
I say, let Cade take a game winner. Why is it 3 points? What?
The Luka Doncic trade. I mean, this like.
Oh my gosh, I have a lot to say about this. That's my favorite player in the league too.
It is.
I'll let you go. I want to because I have something to say. I want to let you go ahead. What'd you make of it when it happened? Dude, when you saw it on your phone? What did you think?
I mean, first of all, I thought it was fake.
I did too.
There's no way this is happening.
I thought he was hacked. I did.
Yeah, I did not believe that it was true. This is my thing with the Luka thing. I don't mind. Like, if you were going to trade Luka, the way everything went down, like, I think as a league, and it's the same thing in any league, like, there is a side of it where, you want to shop around, you want to keep guys in the know. Like, there's a right way to go about it. I know that's dumb. Like, Booner, who cares? It's a bit like there's a right way to go about that. Felt like, and that GM, whatever his name is,
Nico Harrison
should not have a job walking into the building today. He should have been fired on the spot. The ownership group. I saw today that someone had, I think it was Chandler Parsons had texted Mark Cuban and said, "Hey, like, what's going on?" He said, "Hey, I'm wondering the same exact thing." Because Mark Cuban sold some of he sold his stake of the ownership. So like Mark has no clue. And then the ownership basically just gives this GM, "Hey, do whatever you want." And he just tore this whole thing up. And honestly, at the end of the day, boys, like, that might been, and I think it's going to go down as one of the worst trades in sports history. Like, that was bad. I don't care about AD, all that. I put a tweet out. They turned Jalen Brunson and Luka Doncic, 2 guys, 24 years old, 25, 26 years old, guys up and coming in this league, top 10 players in the NBA that are going to keep going for the next 10 years, for Kyrie Irving, who is at the end of his career, Klay Thompson at the end of his career, and Anthony Davis, who's 32 years old, who in the next 5 or 6 years is going to be done. You had such a good franchise. And I don't know, boys. Like, I think the Lakers are going to be really good. And I know, Jeff, you're like, no, they need to get a big man. I think no matter what, if you have Luka Doncic on your team, and it's the same thing, it's like in the NFL with the quarterback. If you have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, you're going to have a chance to win it all. I think if you have one of the top 5 players in the NBA, you're going to have a chance to win it all. And I think it's the same thing with Luka. And now he's in the biggest market in the NBA with the Lakers. I mean, it ruined everything. And now I'm seeing front office people around the NBA are genuinely like not happy. And they're reaching out to people because they didn't let anyone else bid on Luka outside of the Lakers. It was a private conversation, which probably not the right way to do it. It looks bad on the GM because you probably could have got a way better package out of it.
You know what I found out, Boone? Nico Harrison. I mentioned this to you guys. I don't know what we were even talking about, to be honest. Nico Harrison, though, we talked about it like last week, or maybe it was this weekend. We were talking about it. But he used to work for Nike, and Rob Pelinka used to be Kobe's agent. So Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison have a relationship. So it makes me think like he's even more incompetent because he called a buddy of his in LA and was like, "Hey, man, like they're probably drunk on the phone. Like, what would you give up for AD?" And he's like, "What would you give up for Luka?" And he's like, "I don't know, man." Like,
yeah, and they said they kept it to each other. Like, what are you guys?
And that's like to your point. That's not how you typically do things. Usually, it's a process. You see what you can get. But also, I look at it like this: how many teams can offer you an Anthony Davis right now? You know, if you were going to trade him, they should have gotten more stuff.
Yeah. The Heat, the Luka wanted to go to the Heat. Like, you got to go to the Heat and say, "Hey, we want Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, or we want this player and this." Like, you could have made it to where, hey, Rob, I have this offer. Can you up me on this one? And you could have like outbid people and raised the price for Luka.
Sure,
and you literally got 1 first-round pick and Anthony Davis.
Yeah, they probably got the best.
That's
player
crazy.
They could have gotten, though. I will
Luka
say
Doncic is that to me. He is way better than Anthony Davis right now because of the age, what he's doing. Yeah. You should not that was almost like a straight up, like, what are you doing?
I think they won. I think the Lakers won more. They win in the short term. I'm with you. As long as you have him and LeBron, you can, make a run. But I think long term, dude, that was a home run. They have a star after LeBron. But like the Mavericks, I don't know. It's just I've never seen it happen. I think this is the most surprising trade I've ever seen in my entire life. I've never seen a player at 25 years old. He's already a top 4 player. He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
He will be for 10 plus years. Like, it's not like it's just at the end of it. 10 plus years.
And the people, like his camp, or not his camp, but the GM and the Mavericks camp, like saying, well, he's kind of out of shape and he's always hurt. Dude, he's still
a top
one
4 player.
Yeah,
out of shape. He's top 4.
Dude was like, I don't care if he's smoking fucking cigarettes while he's dribbling the ball past.
Yeah, that was funny.
Fucking Doncic. Like, it's true. Like, it's not like he's James Harden when he was past his prime. Like, he is. No, where would you guys put top 5 in the league?
Dude, he's gonna be one of the I honestly believe this, Klotzy. I think he wins multiple championships in LA because of the market and the players that they're gonna attract. And I think he's gonna end up being one of the best players of all time, like top 20, top 30 all time.
I think he could be higher. I think he could
maybe
be
top 10 all time. But now that he's there, like Dallas, I'd be like, maybe he gets 1 in his career, maybe 2. You're in LA, like, dude, imagine the players that they're going to attract. Like, he's going to end up getting 3-4 championships out of this.
Think about Luka too. Like, he's done everything he could for the Mavs. Like, sure, he could have played better defense in the finals, whatever. But he put them back on the map like Dirk did. And now you get traded. Think about how pissed off. Like, if you're Luka Doncic, like, you thought you were just about to sign a supermax and just stay home. You got Kyrie. You can keep building a little bit.
I would never talk to Dallas.
He's in a better spot. But I think this is like, you're going to see Luka like lock in now, especially because he's going to be the guy that's LeBron's predecessor. Like, obviously, he's not going to be LeBron. But there's only so many guys in the NBA that could potentially like scrape how good Bron was for how long.
For sure.
And to your guys' points, like AD, like maybe he could have done it 5 years ago. Like, this would have been an amazing trade. But for right now, like, you got Kyrie, who great player, but you can't really rely on him in the playoffs if he doesn't have LeBron. Like, he can put up numbers, but to carry you to a series, no.
They have 2 number 2.
Yeah, like they don't in the West. You can't. You traded Luka in the West.
You got worse, in my opinion. Like, going from Luka to Anthony Davis is a downgrade. Luka just took you to the finals and you couldn't win it, and you needed to give him more pieces. The man literally played like 95 games last year. 95 games, like, that's ridiculous. He played over 90 games and he averaged 34 a game, and he played basically every minute of every game. Like, I mean, I want to see real quick. I did have his stats pulled up. Yeah, dude, he averaged 41 minutes a game in the playoffs in 22 games. And in the regular season, he averaged 38 minutes. Like, he was playing essentially full games. And he took you to the NBA Finals, and you just like, hey, we're done. Like, you had players on that team who were young. Like, now you have Derek Lively, who is a very young player, like, who's going to come up with Luka. Like, you have all these young guys now on this team who are going to, like, I think that was the dumbest trade in NBA history.
It's
so mind-boggling to me.
I feel so bad for Maverick fans, and I feel
Oh my gosh,
you know who I
dude.
feel even worse for. Not worse, but because I feel worse for the fans, but someone I do feel bad for
Jason
is
Kidd?
Mark Cuban.
Oh, Mark Cuban. I was saying Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd.
No, Jason Kidd. He's actually him too. But Mark Cuban just sold and I don't feel bad for that. He got a lot of money, but he just sold it. And they traded Luka, and you see his story I saw on Instagram. Like, he is livid, and he doesn't have the same. He doesn't have control. Like,
did you hear the quote that came out of him?
He just has to watch something that he just built, just picked apart. Yeah.
Did you see the quote that he had? Like, a couple years ago, someone asked him, like, would you rather leave your wife or get rid of Luka Doncic? And he said, if I had to make the choice, I'm showing up Monday morning with my divorce papers or something like that. Like, he was like, I would never get rid of Luka.
Chandler Parsons, he texted Mark Cuban. Did he?
I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, he texted Mark, and he's like, why would they do that? And he was like, I don't know. Or he said, like, I'm so, or whatever. He said something.
He's like, I have no clue. I question the same thing.
Yeah. Or I was wondering the same thing, something like that. So, like, even he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, dude. I just feel bad, Luka, dude. I feel bad for him. I just think, like, again, I'm pretty big, like, in all professional leagues, like, how to treat, like, these players or coach, like, whatever it is, like, out of respect. That wasn't done out of respect at all. Like, just randomly, without even giving Luka a heads up, just being like, hey, you're going to LA. Like, that's your franchise. He's expecting, like, that you're messing with the guy's money at that point. He's expecting a Supermax deal. And you just took that out. Like, you have to at least have a conversation with him and say, hey, just so you know, these conversations are happening. Just be prepared for this. Because I think he bought, like, a mansion, like, last week. So it's like, dude, you have to have these conversations with people. You can't just blindside people like that. And if I'm in that organization, I would probably be asking out, to be honest. If I'm Jason Kidd, I'd be like, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this. What's the guy's name? Nico? Nico what?
Yeah, Nico Harris. Yeah.
I saw a story about him too, Jeff Klotzy. The guy, he was the one at Nike, because you said he was an exec at Nike, right? Yeah. He was the one that put the pitch together when they brought in Steph Curry, and Steph wanted to be at Nike, and he botched the Nike presentation. He went in there, he called Steph Curry Seth Curry, and then he also instead of using Steph's own presentation, he used the old Kevin Durant presentation on accident, and he botched the whole thing. And within the next couple of weeks, the story is Steph said, I'm going to Under Armour, because they called him Nico Harrison in the meeting, called him Seth, and also used the Kevin Durant PowerPoint instead of Steph Curry's own.
Wait, I mean, that is.
I saw it on Twitter. Again, it could be completely wrong, but I saw it. It was like, just so you guys remember what Nico Harrison did at Nike. He's the one that botched the Steph Curry.
If it's on the internet, it's
contract.
most likely true. So I'm gonna go with that.
It's the narrative.
That's crazy though, isn't it?
That
like,
is.
This guy is just bad at everything in his life, and somehow he's getting paid how much? He's a GM of the Mavs.
Yeah, he has to know something.
They asked him the question. I watched the press conference the other day. I don't know if you guys saw it. He what did they ask him? They go, he was responding to a question about the future. Do you see that response? And he was like, well,
we just know.
Yeah, he's like, well, 3 to 4 years. I mean,
yeah,
I might not be here.
And he's like 7 to 10. Like we might not be here. We might have dug ourselves our own grave or whatever.
He was like, me and Jay Kidd. Jay Kidd's probably sitting there like, dude,
what the? Did you see the video while he's talking where he just the best part too about that whole thing is when they're telling AD and Christie that they're getting traded, and like AD's like, you just said, and then you see like 5 minutes later they're interviewing Max Christie and they like subtly rip off. They rip off the.
I saw that. There's a video that them telling them that they got traded.
They don't, but they're interviewing him, and then you look in the back and somebody rips off his name tag from his locker.
I have clarity on that. I have clarity on that. They were on the road, and whenever you're on the road, they all start taking down the name tags. So, because I was thinking that too, I'm like, how disrespectful. He's literally gets the interview, they're taking out his locker, and it's a bunch of people were commenting.
The timing of that is
dude.
tough.
Even what the dude told him, they told AD, hey, look at your phone real quick, like check your phone, and then they get the video.
You think LeBron knew? You think LeBron knew or no?
LeBron was probably
he said he didn't
orchestrating the whole fucking thing, where he's like, all right,
the rumors are
maybe 2 left.
The rumors are LeBron was at dinner, had no clue, got the alert or a text, and he was like shocked at dinner. That's what the report is. I mean, everything.
Nothing goes on in LA without LeBron knowing.
You know what I think happened though? I think what happened was I actually don't think LeBron knew, but what I think happened is over the last year, I was telling my cousin this. I think LeBron's been very vocal that he's always wanted to play with Luka, and he's fine with it. Like, that's one of the guys in the league. He has always been like, I want to play with him. And I think at some point, him and Rob Pelinka probably had a conversation to where they were like, hey, if you ever have a chance for that, just do it. Like, that you don't ever have to tell.
He probably knew LeBron would like be okay with
yes, it. Like I'm sure they had a conversation at some point, and Rob at some point over the last year brought it up. It was like, hey, if we have a chance to trade for Luka, are you in on that? And he was probably like, get rid of anyone. I'm in.
Hey, Weezy D says Joel Embiid 2022 A+ asset, Joel Embiid 2025 C+ asset.
That's one of my.
Boone would argue that Embiid is still an A- asset.
No. That is one of my greatest takes I'll ever stand on, is that Joel Embiid was always going to be a bust. He was never going to be anything in his career. I hate that guy forever. I could see it from day one when the man didn't play his rookie year. It was like, this guy is never
process.
Have fun with. He should have never even won the MVP. Give it to someone else. Hate that guy, dude.
That's like
no disrespect, Joel,
Ryan Day-esque.
Fair.
It's a Ryan Day-esque. Yeah, fair comp. Yeah, it was crazy, man. I mean, easily one of the most surprising, shocking trades ever. I mean, usually the media in 2025, they always know something. That must have been like a midnight, like 2 a.m. You're in your office. Everyone's at home. He's just him on the phone. Like, no one heard anything. Because if one person found out, like even in the receptionist, like, hey, they heard something, they would for sure rat out. Like someone would
at some point, it's gonna
out at his home
like
office.
Luka's coming to LA. Like Luka's coming to. Not a person knew till it happened. Like that's even more crazy.
That's crazy, like one of those fantasy trades that you make. Like you're just bored, you're trying to get something accomplished, and you're just, hey, maybe had a couple beers, maybe smoke a little J or something. You're like try to make something happen, and you wake up in the next morning, like, what the fuck did I do?
Dude,
like it made so much sense for like 2 seconds in your head. You're like, yes. That's what needs to happen. You probably have the trades lined up where it's like, okay, after we get AD, we're gonna flip Kyrie, we're gonna get Jimmy, we're gonna get it's like, no, bro, it was cut off. Road cut. Nobody. Do you think people want to do business with Dallas right now, or do you think people stay the fuck away from it?
No, I don't know, because Dallas should have. I think out of respect around like other GMs, like the reports are other GMs around the league and owners like are mad because they didn't give anyone a chance. So you're probably sitting. Dude, I just literally before we started the show.
I saw it, and when I saw it, I'm like, oh my, they're just mad at it.
I would be too, dude. If you want an opportunity, and again, I think the worst part of it is the GM in Dallas could have made the price go up, and instead he just went with one team and took the lowest price, probably. Like, you know what I really feel bad for, and Jeff, you said it, like the fan base. Like they're outside the arena, like putting like protesting, and it's like when it happened. At first, I was like thinking basketball wise. As I'm scrolling Twitter, I start to think like I think Luka Doncic in Dallas probably was one of the highest jersey sales in the NBA for the last 5 years.
Yep.
Think about the Luka jerseys out there. They're just like that, nothing. I was looking at picture or videos of around the arena. Every single poster and banner that's up on their stadium is Luka Doncic. Everywhere you go in the stadium, it's Luka Doncic. Every murals, everything. It's number 77. It's Luka Doncic. Think about like, I was reading a tweet like people being like, in the city of Dallas, how much money a good Mavs team with Luka makes of people coming in and eating at restaurants, doing like financially, that hurts the city making that move. Like there are just so many things that GM just did not even take into consideration where like, obviously he's not going to make moves based off how much money the city's going to make. But like, dude, that was a franchise player for the next 15 years. You just did it for the next 2 years. To me, it's like that city could suffer for the next 15 years if you don't find another star. Like that's a once in a generational star that you just said, we don't want anything, dude. Hey, just go. Like the city has to be like hurting because they were about to make so much money the next 15 years.
Bring in Schottenheimer, let go of Luka. Dallas is a sports wonderland right now. Like football, basketball, they have nothing. And that was like one of the pinnacles of, it wasn't a LA or a Boston or anything like that, but Dallas was a great sports city.
I couldn't imagine like in a couple years when Cade's like a top 7 player in the NBA, top 10 player, and we just wake up one night and it's just like Cade Cunningham traded. And we're all like, oh no, like that's our franchise guy. And it's like we just trade him for basically nothing.
It's not funny. I'm just not funny.
You trade him for like that would be trading him for like current day, like I don't know. It would be like really big.
Dude, like Weezy, people said the same thing about Zion. People going too far with this Luka glaze. Dude, like Zion was coming out of college. He got a lot of hype. I was one of the ones that said it was too much hype coming out of college. Luka is actually producing. He's a top 4 NBA player.
Luka and Zion aren't even in
not even close.
The same stratosphere. Like
Luka's going to be one of the greatest in the.
But that actually proves the point. Like Zion's a really good player, but Luka's a Hall of top. I would say 15. Book him at the end of his career. That dude is. I mean, what he's just. If you look at his finals performance this past season, second to Michael Jordan in highest points per game. What he's doing, it's not even like. And the thing that makes it even more confusing, Boone, is Zion is still in New Orleans.
I don't think Weezy.
They would have let him walk. Yeah.
I don't think Weezy watches the NBA because a healthy Luka is top 3.
So I would tell me if I'm wrong on this, Boone. Number 1, for me, no order, but number 1, I would say Jokic. I'll put Jokic up there.
Yeah.
I think Giannis is up there. I would go Luka.
Yeah. Again, I would take Luka over Giannis. Like now.
So that's 3. No order. You can put them in any order. So that's 3. I would say SGA is in that conversation.
In the conversation, depending on who you.
I'm missing someone. I'm missing someone.
Throw in Ant if you want to. Ant could.
Yeah, I don't know if Ant's there, and then people will argue.
He's just outside. He's in top 10.
People will argue Jason Tatum. I won't put Jason Tatum in that conversation personally. Like I just think. That's cool. I mean, to me, I would rather have Luka over Giannis. Like I think Luka healthy is just like. Look what he did with that Dallas team last year. That like he put them on their back, like it took them to the finals. It's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. Not a great defender, but
Boone sounds
okay,
impressed.
Cool,
dude. This is my favorite player in the NBA. Him and Devin Booker and Cade. Yeah. I'm gonna throw Cade in there now because
it's like, hey, dude can't defend. Yeah. That's fine. Surround him with guys that can. We'll figure it out because he's gonna give me a chance to win every game.
Weezy said LeBron's better. Tatum, Cade over Tatum. LeBron.
Now it's opinion. Now it's just opinion.
Now we know he's just trolling. It's a troll. It's a troll.
No, he might actually. No, Weezy believes it. I just disagree. I disagree with that. I don't. No. Luka is like.
Oh, he said Joel Embiid. Oh, I'm out on Weezy. Lost all my respect. Hey, I'm Weezy. I love you, brother, but no more basketball talk with you. I'm out on that with you.
Yeah, Zion healthy being top 5. Like, I think
that's crazy, dude. We've seen Zion healthy. I mean, the man's not top 5.
He's really good, but there's a lot of really good. Like I think Luka's great, literally great. Jesse Adams says, Mailbag, who's more dead right now, Dallas Sports or Drake? The West Coast killed both those things the last 2 days.
Oh, dude.
You know what, Jesse? That's a messed up joke. It's not. You know what? That's messed up. I would say Dallas
on this stuff, but
Dallas is more dead right now because Drake's fine.
Drake drops soon, doesn't he?
He's dropping on Valentine's Days, and he's in Australia touring. Around locally.
He's in Australia. I didn't ask you about an Australian tour.
Can you guys answer me a question?
He's doing fine.
Answer a question for me
about the Grammys, man.
I'm just trying to figure out the stuff with the Kendrick stuff, like that song that he had. It's false. Like the allegations are obviously false.
Some would say.
So like when you do that, right? Like in the real world, like when you like falsely accuse someone of something, like you can get in really big trouble. And like not even just like if I did it to you guys and you guys wanted to sue me, like you could do that, I get in pretty big trouble. Like falsely accusing you online for people. I'm confused on how Kendrick's just like, winning Grammys, performing it at the Super Bowl. Like how does that happen? Like it's obviously
when you got a great legal team, Boone. Sometimes you can have two gloves that perfectly fit on your hand.
I guess
two people, you walk
but
away innocent.
Am I the only one that I like the song? The song's great.
I got the other side of it, Klotzy. Or Drake. Think of it from Drake's perspective. Okay, Sue Kendrick. How are people gonna look at Drake now? They're gonna say that dude's a fucking massive puss. That's what
like a big allegation, and that terms. I know that's crazy to me.
If he pulls a lawsuit suing him for defamation, I know there's another thing with fake numbers, or he's selling his label, or he's suing his label.
I was just thinking about that today. I was like,
but defamation, it's if he did that, dude. Oh, Chris, shout out to Chris. He'd be like, "Your goat." Look at him.
Yeah, but it is realistic though. Like that happens all the time with people's with like their name, like defamation. It's like it's a serious deal. Like calling that type of stuff. I'm just shocked.
What do I know about it? Nothing.
On that stage, dude, like at the Super Bowl, he's gonna be able to like go out there and sing that song in front of millions, billions, and it's just like, is there no one in like the court of law that's just like, hey, this guy is doing like,
it's a hit.
Yeah, I guess, but it's like obviously a lie, and you're just, I don't know, dude.
Drake, I will say though, Klotzy, can we agree? Drake woke him up.
Drake woke him up.
Did he not? He's been releasing Drake music after that.
Kendrick dropped a great album last year.
Name me a song.
Mirror.
Exactly. We'll get out of here. Oh,
did you say Mirror? No. I've never heard that song before.
I'm kidding.
Never heard it.
I gotta get him rattled.
Shout out Chrissy Platt.
Never heard that either.
I gotta trigger Klotz before we leave here. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Appreciate you all. Shout out to Kory for joining. Bring Myles Garrett home. But
go Pistons too.
We can go Pistons. Fucking Tobias.
Oh, and Wings tomorrow, I think.
All right. See ya.
Love you guys.